to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Once the Mass General Law is being used in voting on, let me see first. The petition for tie is 0 Westport Lakes Road, continuation of the continuation, et cetera, hearing on an application of Pine Ridge Estates LLC in Bradford, Dean for a comprehensive permit pursuant to Mass General Law Chapter 40B for development off Westport Lakes Drive consisting of 38 single-family homes on individual lots, which are to contain 2 or 3 bedrooms, with 10 of those homes being designated as affordable deed-restricted homes. Subject property is located at 0 Westport Lakes Road and is shown on Assessors Map 31, lots 3B, 3C, and 4G. Generally, what I would have the petitioner come up and provide whatever information is pertinent, but we've already done that 6 times. So our attorney Bucci, has put together a draft decision. We also have a draft waiver list, and our plan is to go through the draft decision and the draft waiver list. Now, for those of you in the audience, I just want to identify why we're doing it this way. For zoning appeals petitions, we always vote to grant the petition for a couple of reasons. Let me put it this way. We always start off with a motion to grant. Even if everybody is in favor of it or if everybody is against it, we always make a motion to grant because our bylaw says it takes so many affirmative votes to grant the petition. So we always start off under the premises that we're going to grant it. Even if nobody is in favor of it, the vote can be 0 for 4. So the difference between a motion and a vote. So what we're going to start off with then is the decision that's written up by our attorney. We will go through that. It's like 20 pages long. We're not going to go through it line by line. What we're going to do is all the members have had a copy for at least a week. Petitioner, you've had a copy of it as well.
Last night. Sorry, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Christopher Agostino, counsel for the applicant. I don't know if there was some miscommunication, but we just received it last night. We had a chance to review it this morning. So happy to see where the board, where the conversation goes this evening. I think in large part, we're, for lack of a better term, in pretty good shape. Certainly, I find it's more productive and you get a better result when there's some dialogue and back and forth.
Yep.
And I was hoping that would have been the case between the last hearing and now, but we really didn't have an opportunity to do that. So, I think we can maybe have that conversation this evening. But no, we didn't see this last week. We just got it last night.
Okay. Yeah. So what I plan on doing is going through it, not paragraph by paragraph, but where anybody has a comment on a paragraph, we will stop and discuss it and clarify whatever. And that includes both the decision and the waiver list. I'm going to leave the hearing open until we get through that because, like you said, we sort of want to get the petitioner's take on whatever is in the decision before we act. Because once I close the hearing, then we cannot take any more information in. It will be up to the board to render a decision.
Mr. Chairman, excuse me, but where does the public input come to that? We're going to be talking about it, and then we'll discuss it at that time. Mm-hmm. Will the public have an opportunity to comment on those after we get done with our motion?
After we're done with our discussions, I'll open it up to the public again.
Thank you.
Without further, voting on this will be Jerry Gattino, myself, Roger Menard, Constance Gee, Ray Elias, and Cynthia Kozekowicz. And we've all been here for the entire series of sessions. So we're all appropriate to vote on this. So, yes.
be easier to address you from up here tonight. I'm not planning on talking too much unless you have a lot of questions. I just wanted to update you again. I think you know us before you, but I just wanted to describe the documents that are before you. Counsel for the applicant had actually provided a very thorough draft comprehensive permit decision. It was very consistent with the types of permit decisions that I will typically write for a board as after the process. You just want to keep a couple of things in mind. You know, you want this to act as sort of a checklist for when your building official looks at the final plans and they're talking about issuing a building permit, or then beyond that, an occupancy permit. They want to be able to use this as a checklist to make sure that the final plans conform with your conditions of approval. So that's how these are kind of set up. And I just wanted to note to you, so that I didn't reinvent the wheel, and in case the board members had spent a lot of time reading council's first draft, I didn't want you to have to fish through that to see what you may have had questions on from before, or if you liked certain sections of it, so that you had to find those again. So I left their draft intact as it was, and the only thing that I did to it, anything that I added that I thought were based on local comments that you had received, either from the peer reviewer or from other town committees or departments, I then put those in track change format on council's initial draft. So the track changes that you see is your council's addition to their draft, just so you know, so you don't have to read through everything again. And then and then the other issue is the waivers. I sent Maria today a clean version of the final proposal that you had received from the applicant, and that was the result of the working session that you, Roger, had with, I think, the peer reviewer and the applicant and representatives, that you went through the waivers, and then you came up with language that either granted the waiver or granted it with a condition. I should note to you, I had questions on some of them myself that I wanted to make sure that they were consistent with the recommendations that you had received either from other town committees or the peer reviewer. So I just wanted to note that to you, that this is not really my document, the waivers document. That's something that really you want to look at carefully and make sure that you understand exactly what it is that's in there. And if you have questions about it, we should follow up on that. So if you end up closing the hearing tonight, you'll have 40 days to continue to deliberate on a decision, and you can get input from council. So if there's other questions that you had about local regulations, we can certainly answer that for you after the public hearing is closed. But I just wanted to note that caution to you that this is a document that resulted from that working group. It isn't something that I prepared from scratch based on the comments from the town departments.
Right. Okay, having said that, I think what we'll do is we'll just go through page by page on the decision. And if anybody has a comment, just jump out and say, okay.
Do you have a copy?
Excuse me?
I didn't get a copy. Is that something that we all supposed to have copies of?
Should have a copy of that, right? I have another one, I think.
Did we have that? Did we have that the last meeting?
No, it was emailed to us.
It was emailed.
I didn't print it. I can't print it, so.
You
Emailed.
definitely want that. That's
July
what I
24th.
provided by last Wednesday, as you
Do you
requested.
want to share it down? I mean, I don't know how many copies. Okay.
I only have my electronic copy.
Is this?
No, it's this. So we can share.
Maria, did you print those up for us?
I printed up the waivers today.
Yeah, not
But
the
not the
waivers, but the
decision.
decision that we're gonna be.
But it was on Westport, it was on Westport,
We
no,
put that
I
on.
didn't get one.
yeah. No, you did not. You have them there and you don't,
So who doesn't have a copy of this?
One of us.
All three of us.
We got this a week ago.
Not us.
Yes,
Yes,
it was
we did.
emailed a week
Someone
ago.
else might have
24.
made copies.
Okay.
What?
I made copies, there's a copyright in the.
Yeah, so one of the, Roger has a printed copy, I stopped.
Mr. Chairman, does that TV work?
I
Does
stopped.
It might take a few minutes, and maybe it would help everybody, but I could maybe get it up on the
That would be
television.
a good idea.
You want me to give it a try?
No. I think it was Rogers. Rogers, is that your original? That's your original, right? Okay.
Did you graduate?
Thank you.
Now we're good?
I hope so, because the copier didn't do what I wanted.
These guys need them, I got my pooter.
Married. Our two colleges got married. They became universities. And then eventually became united.
I got it. Thank you.
Okay,
I got my computer.
Thank you.
okay, everybody got one?
Unless we're too long and my battery
Right.
dies, then
So-
I might need one.
My first comment is on page 3. Attorney Pucci, I have a question mark on number 11. The board finds that as of the date of the applicant's application to the board, the town of Westport does not meet the statutory minimum set forth. Is that the 10% thing, or is that the?
10% or
Okay.
1.5% land area.
Because, and I'll just clarify for the audience, there's a section here that just says that Westport does not meet the statutory minima set forth in General Law 40B. And what that says is that the ZBA may deny the comprehensive permit only if the town has met one of the safe harbor provisions. Relevant example, 10%, and Westport is nowhere near 10% of affordable housing. If we were a safe harbor, then we could deny a permit for any reason.
You could deny the permit and they would not have the right of appeal to the Housing Appeals Committee.
Right.
You
right.
could go ahead, and even if you're in safe harbor, you could go ahead and grant a permit, but they wouldn't have that appellate right.
Right.
So it
So-
obviously is very
Okay.
meaningful. The reason that that's in there as a jurisdictional finding is to explain why you went ahead to a full substantive hearing, and that you're either gonna issue a substantive denial of the permit, or you're gonna issue a approval with conditions.
Right, and then if this was appealed, then this document would obviously go to the housing authority, and they would understand that Westport is not a
Correct.
safe harbor.
Correct.
Right, okay, that's, all right, I'm good with that.
Stay here for a little while.
Yeah, might
in
as
case you have
well.
little
Yeah.
questions.
The next one I have is on the next page, A3. And it's just, my question is, what does this really entail? If the board determines that proposed changes are substantial pursuant to section 1 below, it shall notify the applicant, and the applicant may proceed in accordance with 760 CM. I have no idea what that means.
Well, this part's important. So what that goes to is if the applicant has a project change. So if they say they do further perk testing and they find out they need to redo their system, or they need to move buildings or change the plans, they have to come back to you for a change. You make it, and what those regulations that are cited in there, they're somewhat needles in the eye if you read them, but they actually make a lot of sense, because first the developer will have to come back before you and they ask you to make a determination whether their proposed change is substantial or insubstantial. If you find that the change is insubstantial, the permit is so modified. If you find that the change is substantial, change in building type, moving something around significantly, then it goes to a full public hearing, the way you've had this public hearing. And those regulations that are cited in there are the ins and outs of how that works.
Oh, okay, okay.
And how do we enforce that? I mean, if there's changes that are being made and they don't come before us, I mean, obviously the building inspector.
That would be a problem, yeah, it would be like a zoning violation. So you'd need your zoning enforcement officer or somebody to raise the issue to you. Maybe an abutter would see something going on, maybe you would see something. You can't go on their property to monitor it, although you'll have inspection rights.
Right, so
You know,
the
built into the
permit
permit.
inspections, that they would need to bring that up to our attention.
It would be very difficult for a developer to get away with substantial changes.
I mean, yeah, kind of hard, but.
Yeah,
And now that would be during the development phase. 3 years later, a homeowner decides to do something that's against this. This doesn't apply.
no, that would be a different issue. So this permit will be in perpetuity.
Yeah.
So, and the affordability restrictions that are on there are in perpetuity. And this permit will run with the land, so this will be recorded. This will be the governing be-all, end-all for this property. So the successors and interest can't come in and change the project around without coming back before you. So that would be an entirely different way of, that would really be more of an enforcement issue than this initial developer coming back with a plan change. And I'm glad you called that condition out, Roger, because this is not just a boilerplate or technical condition. This is a very important condition because frequently, because of the preliminary nature of plans of a 40B developer, a lot of times there are project changes along the way. And this sets up an orderly process for them to bring those before you. And again, you have the option under the regulations, you have to act under a time frame with it, but you can deem certain insubstantial changes insubstantial so that you don't need a full public hearing, but you'd want to make sure that you acted on that at a public meeting within, the 20 days that they submit that to you.
Okay.
I mean, there are certain changes we can see, like the septic, like they can't make a substantial change because it's going to be inspected along the way. But things like retention ponds which has been an issue in the hearing. I mean, they're not really inspected, right?
Not really. I mean, it would really be something that required some type of project change, reconfiguration because of something that has to be done to that. And a lot of times a change will come up with subsequent permitting, because if they have state permitting that they have to go to, a lot of times that will result in them having to make changes to the plan and they come back.
So the fact that they don't have a valid perk test right now, and we say that this is okay, we're gonna progress it, and you're gonna get that down the road somewhere. But what if they don't get that at that time? What happens then?
Yeah, I mean, you can only do your best to condition this in accordance with the recommendations you've received. And I should call your attention to that. I did make edits to the initial draft that were based on the comments that you received on the perk test issues, the more restrictive bylaw. So you want to carefully look at that and make sure, and it would help if that individual who submitted the comments to you took a look at it too, to make sure that that's in conformance with what they're recommending to you. Because your local regulations, they're forever waived if you don't act on them. So you really have to listen to those comments. You have the jurisdiction over it, so you don't have to listen to comments or accept the comments wholesale that you get from town committees and department heads, but certainly you want to look at those carefully, and do they raise local concerns about health and environmental issues that warrant you conditioning the permit in accordance with those recommendations on the local regulations.
Okay, the next thing I have is the next section, approved plans. And my comment is when we had our little when we reviewed the waivers, our consultant, one of the comments we had from our consultant was that the final point, that the plan should include the entire subdivision. And I don't see any, I don't see where in this document it actually setback. Yep,
That would
if you can
be,
find it for me, then
Page
you
7.
want to get up to the microphone?
Oh, sorry. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Page 7, condition B8, the redlined B8.
7B8.
Yeah, so the final plan shall include a subdivision plan, i.e. Form A, sufficient to identify and accomplish the subdivision of the project site from other land not included within the project site. And that was his concern, is that you don't show the whole, what is the project site. So that's our proposed condition, I think.
Does that actually fill the bill for that? I mean, you know, other land not included in the project, I mean, is that?
Yeah, it would be double hearsay for me because it was, what they submitted was based on what the peer reviewer said, but I wasn't privy to that conversation. Is that on the waiver of the decision?
It's in the decision.
No, it was a proposed, so the way this is set up, the approved plans are identified, and then the conditions say, you shall do the following to the approved plans before you come back with the final plans.
Mhm.
And you correctly pointed out that the peer review engineer said, well, wait a second, you don't show exactly where the entire property is separated, because there's all sorts of land up towards the end of Westport Lakes, and they wanted to see the entire subdivision plan. And I believe that accomplishes it, but I would just point out as a general proposition that when you take your vote tonight, whatever it may be, there usually is some communication between town council, the applicant, the peer reviewer, to make sure that the words on the page properly reflect what you have voted on and what the deliberations were. So, you know, for you to, or for town council to email, or for me to email Mr. Dunn and say, hey, does this accomplish the goal? Then he can, you know, make changes around the margins to accomplish the goal. But the goal is agreed. We need a
Right,
plan.
It's just wordsmithing at that point.
Correct, and there's a little bit of that in this document. So that's why, you know, I think some collaboration usually gets the best result here, so.
Okay, oh, and I missed one. 5B, fire hydrant approval location shall be, we don't have fire hydrants.
And Roger, before you get to that one,
Yeah.
where are you now in the decision?
Page 7, I was at, well, it was B8, it was B9 scratched out, B8 was the final plan. The other one at the very top of the page,
Right.
B6 scratched out to B5, fire department approved fire hydrant location shall be shown.
Yeah, before you get to that, I just wanted to make sure that you had noted, there was one, we were referring to it earlier about comments that you had received on this issue of the local septic regulations. You know, we were talking about more restrictive regulations.
Yeah, I think that's.
And I just wanted to point that out to the board, that we had added some findings on those issues in accordance with the recommendations you received. And I just want to make sure, you know, there were some big ticket items that you received very pointed comments, detailed with supporting analysis. And I just want to make sure that the board is aware of those, and, you know, we made additions to your satisfaction.
Oh, okay.
You know, added 12 to 15 were based on the letter that you received about the more restrictive regulations.
Yeah, I don't think we've gotten to that yet, though, have we?
You what?
I don't think we've gotten to that in the.
You went by it,
You
because
went by
they were
it?
in the findings.
No, we just got to approve plans, there's no.
Findings are
Oh,
on
okay.
page 2 and into 3.
Oh, yes, number,
And again, as you said, you're not going to go through these paragraph by paragraph, but you should kind of highlight to the board kind of the major ones to make sure on those bigger issues that you receive detailed analysis from town boards or committees, that number one, it meets what they were trying to express to you and it makes sense to you.
right, yeah, so if you look at, board members, if you look at 12, 13, 14, and 15 on page 3, you can see those were all, well, you know, in different color, because that's what
Yeah,
That's what
because
I'm
I mean, I
trying
can't emphasize it to you
And
enough,
that-
like, I'm
That
not
has to do
a,
with
Yeah.
the requiring the nitrogen, all the
Yes.
stuff from the Board of Health is in this section.
because I just wanted to, I'm not a board member. All I'm doing is trying to,
Right.
convey over to you the comments that you've received, but, so,
Mr. Chairman, can I be heard on that point?
That's good.
Yeah, you heard on that, so, I think the 30-minute perk rate is obviously a big ticket item, as town council mentioned, and I know it's top of mind, because I heard board members mention it, and, we struggled with this issue, we talked about it extensively as a team, and because it's something that's important to the town, and because we're showing the septic system in a certain place, and we relied on that 8-minute per inch perk rate when we were designing this proposal, we're actually okay if the board were to potentially deny that waiver. However, what we wanted to talk through and just understand is the Board of Health regulation, and I noted in section 13 it refers to section 7B of the Board of Health regulations. So section 7 of the Board of Health regulations is broken up into two sections, A and B. A says you shall not have a perk rate greater than 30 minutes per inch. And it says, except as may be waived by the Board of Health, and I'm paraphrasing. But there is a provision in there that says the Board of Health may consider, slower perk rates. And then B has the considerations that the Board of Health will take into account when they're considering perk rates. So when they're considering a slower perk rate. So the bylaw itself has a mechanism built in for a potential waiver, and understanding that the board has a concern on this big ticket item. I'm hopeful we've actually come a long way in crossing off a lot of other things, and this is one of the big ticket things. The applicant would be okay adhering to the bylaw as written, but I think we would want to clarify and confirm that ultimately the zoning board has jurisdiction over whether or not there's a waiver under Chapter 40B. So we would envision the process similar to what we've already engaged in. If for whatever reason the proposed site doesn't perk and we go somewhere else and we get a 35, say, okay? I believe just under the law we would be able to request a change anyway, but I think what I had hoped to accomplish is we could draft in a mechanism that says the board denies the waiver provided that the board expressly agrees and acknowledges that they retain jurisdiction over the adjudication of Section 7. The applicant shall, provide reports and obviously get witness test pits by the Board of Health and seek the Board of Health's input, just as we've done in this case. And I think it's worked very well, that we've had a good dialogue and something that's come out is obviously very important to the town. But we would just want to make sure there's no confusion that if there was something marginal and we felt as though somebody was being unreasonable or we thought that our testing said one thing and the testing said another thing, that I think we do have recourse under the law. And we just want to make sure that there's no confusion in the decision, and we would spell that out, or our proposal would have been to spell that out as the process. So that was our thought on that. Given that that's a big concern, and we're hoping it perks under 30, but there's a mechanism that we can adhere to it if it doesn't.
So, to summarize in a sentence, he's asking us to include that we are allowed to waive any more restrictive Board of Health regulations if they can't meet what we've already said in this permit.
so I think you're contemplating you're just trying to condition it that you come back to this board.
Yeah, and essentially it's just, and I think it actually is even provided for in the way the conditions are written, the way the comprehensive permit law works anyway. You wear the Board of Health's hat when it's anything having to do with this project. So I just wanted to make sure that was understood. Now, obviously, the first call you're going to make is to the Board of Health. And then they're going to come before you. We would go through the similar dialogue. It's just to make sure there's no confusion as to, because again, the waiver's built into your local bylaw. It's already in there. It says you may seek, perk rates that go slower. So since it's already in there, we don't see, I think, and it's important to the board, I don't think it's something that makes sense where I think we've had really good dialogue with the board. We've tried to work through some very difficult issues. So I think that's how we would propose to accomplish it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have a problem with that. It's good news that they agree to that as written, the findings, because that was based on the recommendation you received. Just be clear, they don't have to go to Board of Health on this, even though you can get comments on it. They would have to come back to you on that issue under the local regulation. But you're not waiving it, and you're giving a justification for why you're not waiving it in there that is based on the reasoning from the comments that you received. So I'm fine with that.
You okay with that?
I mean, it makes sense, because we're in charge of the comprehensive permit, which is a little bit more malleable.
Correct.
And if they would just go back to the Board of Health for one specific reason, there's less malleability in their ability to maybe
Right.
give a waiver where we could, because of the overall scope of the project.
Yes. The main thing is that, you gave a justification for not waiving it.
So is that
Very
something that would go in the waiver list?
Yeah, I'll have to look at where that is in the waiver and make sure we word that accordingly, but that's easily done.
So this is section 7, percolation rate standards.
So I can just basically, Roger, I can look at that on the waivers and make sure that the language that's in the waivers is consistent with the conditions that you have in the
So
comprehensive
we
permit.
would say we deny this waiver,
Yeah,
but add a statement saying that
yeah, I would,
We don't deny further waivers if there's
Yeah,
they get
I'm-
closer to the perk rate.
I would condition
I've seen
it,
this language that says, like, we retain jurisdiction under 40B to adjudicate any alternate park rate pursuant to the local bylaw. That just, it's clear, just a clarification that you retain ultimate jurisdiction.
okay.
And town council and I can work on that one. Assuming the board wants to deny the waiver. But I saw the drafting, and obviously that was something you had signaled at the last hearing. It's obviously top of mind, so.
So,
Roger?
I don't want to speak out of turn because I know that I'm just in the audience, but I just had a question or clarification. So I appreciate the direction that this is going.
Name and address.
Phil, would you, identify
address.
yourself?
Oh, sorry, Phil Weinberg, Drift Road, and Vice Chair of the Board of Health. So again, I appreciate the direction this is going. I wanted to clarify what the scope of what we are talking about that you retain jurisdiction over, because there, so for example, we might be saying, the Board of Health might be saying, okay, well, we want 5, you've identified this area. We want you to do 4 perk tests in this area. Applicant doesn't want to do 4 perk tests. He wants to do 2 perk tests. Or, we ask for certain information relative to the exceptions for the waiver, or there are issues like that I think should be in the purview of the board. I'm trying to understand, is it simply that you would disagree with the board's decision that the particular site that you have identified doesn't qualify for the exception? Is that the scope that would then come back to this board, or is it more that you just don't like the way the Board of Health is handling your requests? And I think it'd be in the interest of, I'm not that familiar with this process, so it would be helpful to understand that. And part of this is because when you were talking about the infiltration basins and that whole discussion, it was all like, that's the Conservation Commission's issue. You, the ZBA, don't really have anything to do with that. That's just, that's a... And now we're kind of back in different territory, and I just want to get the playing field a little bit
This is
clearer.
this is a local requirement.
Right.
And they have to abide by the state ones, and the Concom and the Board of Health are gonna make sure that they abide by all the state regulations. They can't waive those.
Right.
What we're looking at are the
Right.
local regulations.
Right. But I understand what you're saying is that you are not going to grant their waiver. So what you're, assuming it goes down uphill. So they are subject to the local regulation, and that the board is then going, the Board of Health is then going to make a decision as to whether or not, for example, they qualify for the waiver at this particular site that they've, not for the waiver, for the exception that this particular site has. And that's the matter that I just want to clarify. It's limited to that type of final decision by the Board of Health as to whether to grant the exception or not. And the applicant wants that determination to be made by you, not by the board.
Well, it's not the way
But not, okay, and
Yeah,
that's all. I just want to get that clear.
For you, Roger, I don't, I just have a dialogue, but I think Phil should look at the conditions, that I added to your permit, because they're based on his recommendations. But yes, this board would then be the board deciding whether they should then grant the waiver. It won't come back to Board of Health. So we want to be clear about that.
But we would always.
But all the board can do is condition this the way you would have done it. So that's
Okay.
what we tried to do.
Okay, well, maybe it would help to, I guess it would help to read it.
Yeah. If they came back to us, I think we would go back to you, right? So,
Right.
but we have a more broad-reaching authority to do a little bit more
They can't-
wavering than you can.
You can't send the applicant to them to make the decision for you, but you can definitely get
Right.
Board of Health's input for how you decided.
Right.
It really comes up only if these issues that you raised in your letter come up, that they have to then prove the justification.
Right. Well, I actually, not to further complicate it, but just because I haven't read this. So I proposed the condition that I proposed was that the applicant would try to identify alternative sites, and that the site that would be selected, assuming none of the sites were 30 or less, would be the site that came closest to 30. That was a fairly simple, straightforward, as compared to the exceptions in the regulation, which look at are there sensitive populations nearby, what the environmental impact was, which was a little more, less specific. It was more like, if you're really concerned about the number, and you can't reach 30 in the site that the plan shows, that go out, look for other sites, and go with the lowest.
I got
the fastest
your,
work rate.
Yeah.
I got your thing, so I'll read it
Okay.
so everybody can sort of understand. I'll read the pertinent part. In order to avoid downsides of either the approval or denial of the waiver, the board, this is the health board, proposes a comprehensive permit include the conditions set below. In terms set out a process and criteria of maximum feasibility compliance by which a substitute SAS will be relocated to an area with a population rate that exceeds Section 7 limit should an alternate site within Section 7 limits be unavailable. So number one, the applicant shall conduct a Board of Health approved percolation test within the proposed soil absorption system site and reserve area depicted on the May 8, 2024 site plan. The number of phase shall be established by the Board of Health. Number two, if the percolation rate resulting from said test do not comply with the Westport local septic regulations, section 7A, maximum limit 30 minutes per inch, or if the applicant otherwise chooses to relocate the SAS, the applicant shall conduct percolation tests at other locations that would accommodate a Title V compliant SAS in reserve area. The applicant shall consult with the Board of Health on the number and location of SAS and associated reserve sites to be investigated and tested. Number 3, the site and associated reserve area that demonstrates compliance at or less than the section 7 maximum, which is what you just sort of said, you take the best of what you get.
Right.
Percolation rate shall be the selected SAS location. If no site meets the selection, then the applicant shall, to the maximum extent feasible, select the site with a rate closer to the section A max limits, unless a greater rate is approved by the Board of Health.
Okay, yeah.
So that's,
Yeah.
that would be an alternative than just
Okay.
denying it.
Okay, and I think that's clear, and I just, council was referring to the criteria that, the exception criteria that are in the regulation, which is different than the condition that you just articulated, okay? And I think that the condition that you articulated.
Well, it's actually the ones that you
is much-
articulated, but.
Yeah, that I wrote, is more definitive than, because it's just the math. How does the math work out, and how much effort does the applicant want to go and around for sites for the right purpose?
Right.
So,
I
I
mean-
mean, at least, I'm speaking kind of for the board, but that clarifies that, because it was more the open-ended, somewhat open-ended criteria, the exceptions, that motivated me to come up and ask this question about who actually gets, to decide some of the criteria.
Right.
And actually, we don't have that in the permit.
Excuse me?
Right.
Okay, well, that's what I'm.
We don't have it.
okay.
Yeah.
And I haven't seen, I'm sorry.
We read this.
Yeah, that's from
That's
that one, right?
24.
June 24th.
June 24th. I submitted it to the ZBA. I haven't
Yeah,
been communicating directly.
I don't think I saw that letter, but in any event,
Well, wait, June 24, June 25.
24th, they were.
24.
As I referred to, in the findings I referred to, comments letter, June 25.
I think it is the 24th. They have a copy of the letter.
I have a copy of both, 24 and 25.
Yeah,
Where, no, he's saying 24 and 25.
I have the 25 one as well, but
Yeah,
that's,
but
that
then
one's
they
different.
followed up with a second letter after the 24.
That one's different, the 20,
Is it the same letter or not? Because I
no, it's a
have-
different letter.
There are two letters. One was read at the hearing, and the other one was written after the hearing.
Right. At the previous hearing, I questioned that because they were reading one letter, and I said, well, is that the June 24th or is it June 25th? And it was clarified at the time.
What I'm saying is that the findings that I have in the permit review is a reference to June 25 letter.
Yeah.
Okay,
But the condition that you just read, is that the June 25 or 24?
24.
So we need to go back one, because the 24th was read at the meeting, because we had the meeting on the 25th, and then you followed up after the meeting, or at the same day, submitted the
And does
25th
the board
letter.
agree I should add
Yeah.
conditions to the permit for the?
Right, I'd like to see that they've tried everything, and then
Yeah.
once they decide that they can't meet the whatever the regulation is, after trying, like you said, then we are the final decision maker if that's a waiver or not you. And then I'm okay with that, but I don't want them to go to the first site and say, oh, we can't meet that, so we're gonna go back to the zoning board. I want them to do what I would prefer they did, what the Department of Health had requested, that they do some due diligence and try to find an alternative site. And when they can't find an alternative site, and it's not still within the section 7 of our bylaws, then we get to decide
Well,
if it's waived or
what
not.
this says though is and this is what the Board of Health has identified as how to meet the requirement is They go to the spot that they've already indicated and do the perk test. If that doesn't pass, they go to alternate site. If that doesn't pass, then you use the better of the two, or the three,
Or
whatever.
three, I mean, it's really up to the applicant.
So, in which case, we're not involved in that at all.
Right.
It's already
Oh,
identified
yeah.
as a process.
Yeah, it's until, yeah, exactly, until the,
Right.
Well, we
Now,
don't
does
have
the
that
applicant have
we
an
don't have
issue
that
with
I think what Phil was saying, that clarification of they have to go to alternative sites before they come back to us is not in our decision. And I think we
Well,
should put that in.
I would rather see this, since this has already been approved by the Board of Health as far as a process that they're comfortable with, I would rather do this than override them when it,
No, that's right.
Yeah.
No, that's why I said at the beginning, let's make sure that what I added is per what was recommended.
Yeah.
Recommended. So I'll add the,
well,
we'll
let's
keep the
hear from
findings.
them. I want to hear from the applicant to make sure that
Yeah.
they're
but-
okay with that. I have the letter here if you just want to,
No, I have,
Yeah.
I do have it.
and we actually discussed this at the last meeting.
I thought we were supposed to be
Yeah.
actively trying to do a perk test now, and the project
Yeah, and
in
the-
front of us now.
The takeaway was that it seemed as though the board was inclined to just go with the denial rather than this language. So then when I didn't see this language in the draft this morning, and I saw the findings, I thought the findings were there to set up a denial. So we were trying to work with the board on those findings. But, I mean, I think we did discuss this at the last hearing, and it provides a roadmap if the board's inclined to grant a waiver of the bylaw and put
With
this
these
in.
conditions.
Right.
Right. Yeah. So would this go in the waiver list, or does it go in the
It'll go in conditions.
conditions? Okay,
Yeah, because what I read to you were findings
good.
that justify what we were doing. But then we're gonna add the conditions for the June 24th letter, which I have not seen, but I'm gonna get it. And then, but I'm gonna put that in the conditions section of your comprehensive permit decision. And then when we, in the waiver section, the exhibit, I will put language in there about what's going on with the waiver.
Okay, right.
And if
You
they-
just reference it, whatever, yes.
Yeah, and
So
I-
ours is 30, and what's our numbers and what versus the state numbers, Phil?
I'm sorry.
The state numbers for the perk is what number versus our numbers?
Yeah, the top is 60.
Yeah.
And our maximum is 30.
Right, so if they can't meet 30, then what happens?
So then, arguably, so if it went the way it was conceived, that they would test whatever the existing, the map site is, okay? And it would be a combination of, if two things could happen, which would be, one, the rate is greater than 30, and that would make that site ineligible. Or it could, there's very little surplus area in that location. And it could be that they just can't fit whatever, or they can't even fit 30 in there. Like they could get a 30 per rate in there. And when I look at the map, and when I see the numbers, it's not gonna fit. They based that on 8, okay? So 30 is almost 4 times bigger than 80, but there's no way.
Oh, so if they get to, of 30, it's them too big and it's never gonna fit in the
Let's say
site.
they get to 20, it's like, we can't fit 20 in here. We thought we could fit 8, we can't fit 20, so now we're going someplace else. And then, you know, and because the faster the perk rate is, the cheaper it is going to be for them to construct
Yeah.
the SAS. Because the slower the perk rate, the bigger it is. So then they're going to, I hope, do their due diligence and identify sites that.
Right, so it's cheaper to identify the sites than to build a SIP that's bigger.
That's where, I mean, and again, I'm speaking for myself because this level has not been discussed with the board. But I assume that there would be more than one location identified off-site, you know, and looking at the soil characteristics and other things, they can do a series of tests there. And they would also need to do this for the reserve area, because the requirement is if there's a failure in the system, they need to have a place for the accountability. So they would do those tests, and then we would pick the best site based on the property.
So if they can't meet 30, we would
So,
still,
yeah, so they
we
can
would
set the
approve
survey
it.
and that ends the discussion.
But if they don't meet 30, they still have to meet 60, because that's a no-go for the state.
Right, right,
But we can approve 35.
right.
If we go through that process that we're gonna put in addition, right?
So, yeah, so that would be, and I assume it could be that there was a site that was 32, and a site that was 35, and.
Do we want to put a
you could say
maximum?
You should go to 32, and next day we really don't like 32 for other reasons. We want this other site, I guess they would come to you. and say, we want
But what if they only get to 58? What if they only get to 58?
58?
Yeah, closer to the state guidelines versus closer to ours. Can we put some sort of condition that they have to hit a certain number? Or we just say you can't,
No, you make a,
yeah,
no, because if you say, 47, then you're gonna,
yeah.
48, and then you're gonna,
But are we waiving that they can't, we're saying they can't waive 7B, so if they don't make 30, then they have to come back to us.
Right.
Okay, that's all I want to make sure.
Yeah.
That's not what this says. The conditions that the Board of Health said was, they're gonna go to location 1 and do a perk test. If it doesn't get 30 minutes, then they go to location 2. And whatever, location 3. And if they can't get any of them, then
They pick the best.
you pick the best. There's no number involved in it.
And our peer review at the last hearing we talked about it just now. 2 test pits, or 4 test pits, all 4 corners. Our peer review said all 4 corners. Is that what you're gonna do?
Title V leaves it to the discretion of the board. The Board of Health actually
Health
has
has that.
discretion, and, I mean, to be clear, we were okay with this. There were just a few nits around the margin. I think we said shall be established by the Board of Health in accordance with Title V, just to be clear that, Title V gives them the right to set the number of tests within the parameters of Title V and just not do 1,000 tests. There's obviously some reasonableness standard to it. And then I think the only other line in this proposed condition was ultimately, just to clarify that ultimately the board has jurisdiction. And that was the only other question. But clearly we have to work with the Board of Health as part of the process. This outlined a reasonable approach. I just didn't know what the pleasure of the board was. And when I saw the draft decision, I thought the town council, it was my impression that the board was tending towards a denial, but adopting the Board of Health's recommendation would be an appropriate conclusion.
I mean, that's with the way originally intended, the findings were to set up the denial of the waiver. And so you're kind of changing that.
By adding that, because that's not denying it. And
They haven't decided yet.
Yeah.
They haven't decided anything.
I mean,
I would much rather go with a logical process than one that just says, if it fails, then we throw up our hands and hope for the best.
In a situation like this, Phil, does the Board of Health have like a reasonable maximum number that you're going to make them keep going around finding, or?
I have personally never been involved in a situation.
Okay. So I don't want to have it an endless number.
But that'll be a Board of Health decision,
Yeah.
not
So,
a ZBA decision.
You mean this Board of Health or that Board of Health?
No, that Board of Health.
so if we don't
Well, I think-
incorporate the January 24th thing, and we just say we're denying it unless you hit 30, and then they have to come back to us, then we can keep denying it and force them to keep finding sites to the point where we find a number that we're all comfortable with. So what your original waivers were actually more restrictive than what if we incorporate the January 24th conditions in.
Correct.
Yeah, because you're saying, yeah.
I understood that you were denying. Okay.
Yeah.
I thought the denial of the waiver was.
They have to meet 30 or under.
Forced, to allow the local regulation to take precedence over.
Yeah.
And, I mean, I don't have a problem with that, either. I think I was just, thinking that, that using the site that had the lowest curve, was a better indicator, given the discussion that had happened, than the criteria and the exception of the waiver,
Yeah.
which looked at sensitive populations and environmental impact. Because there's kind of overlap with environmental impact. Anyway, so that's what I was just trying to. I thought there was a more clear way to do it. But if you all think that you're more comfortable just adopting the regulation as it is, I'm okay with that.
Yeah, so actually that is what you're doing. The finding is setting up denial of the waiver, but then you're setting out conditions by which they would be able to get the waiver, right?
Yeah. Because if we just say outright, if we just outright deny the waiver to our section 7, that could give them a right to appeal, and they could just go to 6. They could just have to stay within the state regulations. Where
Yes.
at least if we put further flexibility in our denial of the waiver, with giving them conditions in which they can get the waiver,
Correct.
we have more control.
Correct. Yeah, and plus it justifies it.
Right.
By spelling out the process that they can come back to you, it's showing the local.
That we're trying to work with them rather than just saying, go beat sand. Because if we say that, most likely the state's gonna say, oh no, you're not beating the sand. They have to stay with the section,
Yeah.
with the Title V.
Yeah.
Okay, can we move on? You okay with that?
I just, if we're, as long as we can have dialogue with town council about, ensuring established by the Board of Health in accordance with Title V, and then just clarifying or just putting somewhere that obviously ultimately the zoning board adjudicates any impasse that might result from pursuing this process. And that would be our only proposed change, but otherwise, we're fine with that. And I don't think what I just recited changes the substance of this. It may not be the same people we're discussing this with when we actually go to implement this, so we want to be clear as to.
Because we can't waive the strict Title V requirements. That's Title V. We can only waive our regulations that are more stringent than Title V.
Correct.
Okay, moving on. I'm actually going to go to page 6. And I have a question for our attorney. I've read through here, it seems like the zoning board is involved in this project like forever. And I didn't, that's not the way I envisioned it when I looked at the 40B pamphlet from the state. I thought our job was to do this and then approve the final plans, and then if there was any major to the final plans. But this, there's a whole bunch of places in here that it looks like the zoning board is doing inspections and reviewing projects. And,
We're right,
so
Roger. Yep.
Well, can you just give me an overall view of, after we get through this process of either granting or accepting this project, and if we grant it, obviously, if they have any major changes, they have to come back to us. I understand all that. But what is the zoning board's authority and responsibility after that?
Typically, you'll rely on your building official to bring issues back to you. If the building official sees change in the final plan that he doesn't think conforms with your conditions of approval, he would typically bring it back to you. So you're relying on your building official really on that.
Yeah, I mean, we've
Even
been.
though it's saying ZBA, you're maintaining jurisdiction, but that's for the reason that he can bring it back to you and say, look, this violates, you know, the setback conditions in your permit. And typically a project change will come as a result of something like that. But you're maintaining jurisdiction on that review, which you want to do. You want to be able to pass on that. If he raises an issue to you, you want the ability to look at it and say, yes, this does not conform to our conditions of approval. And then it will be up to the applicant to get a project change on that. So that's what the language in there is for your ultimate jurisdiction over final plans. But you are relying on your building official for that.
Right, I mean, I've only been involved in one before, but Jerry's been around since forever. He's been involved in like,
In 17
you know,
times.
like 3 or 4, so.
I'd like to just clarify one piece of that. We've had it come before us where a change, sometimes years later, and they have to come back to determine, as we said earlier tonight, substantial or not substantial change or whatever. My question is, does the zoning enforcement officer or building inspector, is he or she required to bring any change back to us and we make that decision, or can that person singly say, well, that's minor?
Yeah, there's always a level of discretionary decision-making involved in that. A lot of times there are field changes that a building inspector will be okay with. They won't necessarily bring that back to you.
Okay.
But I don't know your customary practice there. I mean,
But
do
they're
you
not
rely-
required, they're not required to.
No.
They can make that determination.
Right. I mean, presumably the building inspector is going to know there's a 40B. He's going to be looking at it carefully. He's going to be familiar with the conditions of approval.
Yeah.
And would be able to make a determination that, yeah, this is just a field change. It doesn't even require them to come back.
Yeah,
and
we
seek
have had
approval.
that, and it's gone both ways. Sometime substantial and
Yeah.
sometimes not.
I mean, I've seen it in one municipality that will remain nameless for tonight. The building inspector noticed a lot of issues, and then the building inspector started getting very leery not to allow anything to occur without bringing it back to the board. And so that led to a very cumbersome process with the board,
Okay.
acting on, more than 10 project changes. Hopefully you're not going to be in that type of situation here, that you're going to have a reasonable dialogue between the building inspector and the project, and he will bring back issues, if he has to, that are potentially substantial changes. But, that really depends on your customary practices here and your relationship with the building official. Are you typically, able to rely on your building official to
Yeah.
make those types of determinations?
We have in the past.
Yeah.
Yep.
And you're going to assume, a modicum of good faith on behalf of the applicant too, that you don't have the building inspector playing whack-a-mole at the project site. That if the applicant does come up with changes that they have to bring back to you, they're going to do it. But then the second safety valve will be the building inspector.
But there are occasions where the building inspector may not be available for a period of time, illness or whatever, and so we could have a substitute building inspector who may not be as familiar. So that's why I was asking.
Okay,
So is there a time period for which we issue the permit until when they have to commence the
Yeah,
project?
I mean, they've got a 3-year.
3 years.
Okay. And after that, if they don't do it in 3 years, then,
Well, I've seen that come up again. I've seen that come up too, and a lot of times they'll come in for an extension.
Right.
And you can't unreasonably deny it. So if there was an appeal of their permit or some extenuating circumstance, heaven forbid if there's another COVID or something like that.
yeah.
Supply chain issues, whatever, they would come back, but they have to come back to you timely before expiration.
Okay, my next comment is B3, that talks about street lighting. Is this just like a catch-all, because there aren't any streetlights?
Yeah, this was on this is one that you can see the text is, this was the applicant's original
Yeah.
draft, so I was assuming they got that from somewhere.
Is it, did we strike this, or is it just,
We can strike that.
and by the way, I like the idea that you're gonna incorporate glare cutoffs, because as an Adams astronomer, I don't want any extra lights.
Right. So we can strike that.
Yeah. I mean, there aren't gonna be any streetlights, correct?
Sorry.
There aren't gonna be any streetlights.
Right.
Well, what do we do? Do we want a condition there about lights?
I mean, I would say to the extent that there may be streetlights, they need to have cutoff shields, right? If they don't have streetlights, then it's moot, but if for some reason you change your mind and you put some streetlights on, our astronomer here would prefer cutoff shields.
Yeah, so.
Well, is there a site lighting plan referenced above? Do they have a site no lighting plan?
No, so generally, a project like this, the ambient light from the homes and car lights is sufficient, and I don't generally see boards. I had proposed this original draft as sort of a specimen, and I apologize, I left that in, and didn't, update the draft. But I think for this project, generally, the consensus that I've seen is that the ambient light from homes and, just the light over the front door is sufficient.
Could be some lampposts.
So, but we could just, like Cynthia, we could just change that to just say, in the event that there is lighting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think they should come back, because I would just strike it.
Strike it,
If
okay.
there's no lighting, as you pointed out, Roger, I can see your note here,
Right.
then, I mean, my street is the same way.
Very few-
It's dark as hell. I mean, you go on whoever has lanterns, and the
Right.
the street is still very dark, but many people prefer a dark street, and so they go by headlights or whatever. So what does the board want to do? I mean, do you want to require street lighting or not?
I don't.
Yeah, then I think we should just strike that, as you pointed out. You passed over it may be controversial about the covenants, 8, 7, and 8. Before you got to B, Roger, you had submission of final permitting requirements.
We're on
But
page
before
6
that,
now.
you had conditions A7 and A8
Oh, A7, okay.
that I had added per Mr. Boris's comments.
You're right, yes.
So
Yeah,
that had to do with the non-completion of the roadway and all that.
Yes. Would you want to talk about that?
Before he's heard, does the board know what we're talking about, and is the board good with how I wrote it?
I have no idea what you're talking about.
This is A7
Yeah.
and A8. This is,
A,
it was brought up at the last meeting. There are covenants on that road, and those covenants have to be completed prior to commencement of the project.
That was the recommendation that you received.
Right. So we can have.
But did the,
I'm okay with this.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So this is an issue that we discussed at length at the beginning of the process, and then we went and we discussed a lot of other details in the middle, and then we discussed this at the last hearing. This is really something of a technical legal issue, and I had heard at one point that there may have been an opinion rendered that this board didn't have jurisdiction over the planning board covenants that were associated with the original subdivision plan. And I disagreed with that conclusion. I think I expressed that in my original letter. The SJC case is the 135 Wells Avenue case. It's a Newton case where they distinguish between planning board covenants and contractual obligations that the town might enter into. So I don't know if there was some confusion there, but the subdivision approval that you're being asked to approve supersedes the prior approval as to the land that this development is on and Gulfview Lane, okay? Lots 8 and 9. So the covenants that are referenced here, or I believe are referenced here, I don't see, it's doesn't precisely reference what we're talking about, but I assume it's referring to those 2002 covenants. So those covenants were released as to Westport Lakes Drive and all the lots associated with Westport Lakes Drive except for Gulfview Lane, and which is lot 8 and 9 on either side in Gulfview Lane. So to the extent those covenants affect the construction of Gulfview Lane, yes, we have to build Gulfview Lane. So as this reads, you can't commence construction until you comply with the covenants, but the covenants require you to build Gulfview Lane. So there's a disconnect in logic there, because the only thing that the covenants apply to anymore is the construction of Gulfview Lane. And we have a proposal before the board saying that we're going to construct Gulfview Lane. Our original discussion early on at the hearing was, we don't own Westport Lakes Drive, and the covenants have been released as to Westport Lake Drive. So originally, the planning board wrote that letter in an effort to compel this applicant or try to have some coercion to get us to improve Westport Lakes Drive, okay? And when we had the discussion at the last hearing, we said, absolutely, we welcome that. And our thought was that the board would propose conditions to say, essentially, that the improvements to Westport Lake Drive, and we talked about from 177 to Gulfview Lane, because that provides access to our development, would essentially be done concurrent with the development of the project. So I'm just a little unclear on what the context of this proposed condition is, what the intent was, and then what the board's goal is. Because I think we're on the same page as to accomplishing the board's goal. We all want to see Westport Lakes Drive, get to the point where it's finished and there's a top coat and all the construction, any construction damage is repaired and the vegetation is cut back. We agree with that. I'm just unclear if this is saying, applicant, before you do anything, go back to the planning board. Because this board is the planning board. You're wearing the planning board's hat in any situation where the planning board is sitting in a permitting capacity. That's the Wells Avenue case, all right? And it distinguishes between a permitting capacity and exercising property rights of the town. If the town owned Westport Lakes Drive, or if the town owned the lots and you had a covenant where you were a bilateral owner, then maybe, but this is a situation where all we're asking to do is approve a new subdivision plan. And in that subdivision plan, as to lots 8 and 9, which is Gulfview Lane, you have every right to impose conditions that talk about, and surety, which is built into this permit. And I think the discussion was, how do we add conditions, which we're going beyond the scope of 40B, because under 40B, generally speaking, the board doesn't have jurisdiction over off-site issues, but we're in a unique situation. And this applicant has submitted to the board that we're willing to discuss those conditions as long as we get a clear understanding of the process and there's no confusion that the planning board can somehow come in and say, oh, we're in charge now, because you are the planning board for purposes of granting a new subdivision approval. And that was all spelled out in my original letter, that this board's the permit granting authority, and that the only other remedy was the planning board revoke the approval of 8 and 9 and just, this board issues the new approval that essentially matches what we're proposing. But we're essentially requesting a new subdivision. We're saying add conditions that address Westport Lakes, understanding that we don't own it. We are in a position where we may be able, it's on us, we're willing to undertake to compel from 177 to Gulfview Lane with the proper sequencing. And we would see it prior to the grant of the first occupancy permit. So if the developer at that point has millions of dollars into getting the infrastructure built for Gulfview Lane and the subdivision that we're proposing, at that point, we have every incentive to make sure that we've satisfied the status of Westport Lakes Drive from 177 to the entrance to Golfview Lane, and then to the extent there's any damage after that, I think the language in A8 was appropriate, that we agree to correct it. So that was how we saw it. And again, this is complex. There are a lot of moving parts here. I just saw this morning, and I had a chance to talk to the team at 3:30 this afternoon. As long as we all understand the concept, we can, maybe, and again, I'd love to have a dialogue with town council about how to solve for this, assuming, the board gives direction. But, to try to parse this and, planning, holds covenants, like what covenants? I mean, this is detailed stuff as to what needs to be addressed here. And usually this is done in a work session or just, I've done it multiple ways. I've done it across the table from the zoning board chair. I've done it with town council. I've done it in a work session. There are lots of ways to accomplish the goal. It's just, I'm not sure this gets us there.
Does your, what you just indicated, does that overflow into the maintenance of that road as well? Snow plowing?
No, that's later.
Snow plowing is covered separately.
No, but I'm asking, does your coverage of that include the snow plowing?
Coverage of...
I'm not understanding your question.
Well, you're basically saying you'll fix 170, from 177 up to the Golfview. And what I'm saying is, how about beyond that? Is it like the snow plowing?
Future maintenance and
Yeah.
future snow plowing,
Yeah,
for
that's
instance? Okay, so
And of course-
everything's done, and you're wondering whether the developer of this site is gonna...
Right, based on what you were just saying.
Yeah, so I know we had drafted a condition that speaks to snow plowing. I don't have it up in front of me. I think you mentioned it might be further down, but I think we said that there would be some cost sharing there. I don't know how it would work because this site is not party to the homeowners association
Right.
for Westport Lakes,
Right.
but they get the benefit of it to some degree. And it's not a big ticket item, but it's a nice thing. Like
Yeah.
there may be an opportunity for that, but I don't have the detail on it.
But your comments earlier do cover the mailbox situation, correct?
Well, mailbox is a separate condition.
Yeah.
It's a different condition, but the condition, repair, and completing the removal of vegetation, all those things, we anticipated that we would have a discussion about conditions to accomplish that, but we didn't get the impression that it's go satisfy the planning board, and I just want to make sure it's clear that that's not the process we had envisioned.
Comment on that?
I'm open to keeping the public hearing open if they want to continue to have a dialogue on it. I drafted this condition, A7, you can see it's in different color, and I based it on Mr. Burris's recommendation, and apparently, I may be overly simplifying it, but planning board has these covenants. It's the only way to make sure that Westport Lakes Drive gets completed, and they don't want to release the covenants. So regardless of the legal issue of whether you have the jurisdiction or not, and I'm happy to look at what council cited, then you're sitting in their shoes, and they're telling you, do not release these covenants until the roadway gets built. So that's what I drafted in the condition. I feel comfortable defending this condition.
Okay.
I also feel comfortable dialoguing it further, and if we can reach agreement that I'm good recommending revisions to it after consulting with Mr. Burris, that's fine too. But the way this is written is based on Mr. Burris's recommendation,
Right.
and we've known about this issue since the commencement of the hearing. And I said before, this is not my wheelhouse, the way my intellect works. I can't figure out corporate entities and who's conveying what to whom, and I can't do a Rubik's Cube, and I can't do that. All I can do is give you recommendations that are pragmatic, on the ground. The planning board saying this was never completed, and we have these covenants that are our only chance of making sure that it does get completed in accordance with our original approval. And this was
Well,
not.
I think we all understand what we want to do, it's just
Right.
making these words actually say what we want to do.
And, you know, they're based on Mr. Burris's
Right.
most recent comment to you. It wasn't from months ago, it was
Right.
recent, that Maria made sure he was able to weigh in on this crucial issue. You know, this is the issue and the perk rate, right? Those are the big ones
Yeah.
that we've come up with during the hearing. So,
And I think applicant's counsel is saying those covenants are non-existent anymore.
oh, no.
Well, that's what he's saying.
Well, he may be saying that, but that's not.
But
what-
I agree with you, I'm just clarifying his point to the fact that he believes those covenants are not in existence.
I solved the Rubik's Cube. The covenants have been released as to Westport Lakes Drive, and there was an insufficient bond that was secured. I would suggest that when the planning board wrote that letter, if you read into what they were saying, get Westport Lakes Drive done.
Yeah.
Get it in a good condition. They weren't saying don't release the covenants necessarily, because as town council just pointed out, it took a lot of work to figure out what the covenants were, what lots they applied to, whether they've been released, what the status was. Like, it was a lot of work to get to that point, and that was my original letter that I had submitted to the board. What we're really getting at is guys, we need to get this done. And the comment that you don't have leverage, I don't think would apply if we have a properly worded condition that gives this board, as the planning board, as the permit granting authority, the leverage to make sure that in the proper sequence, that the road the vegetation is cut back, that the road is finished, and again, our agreement would be to take responsibility from 177 to Golfview Lane, because that's where it provides access, and there's a logical link there. I know that the timing didn't work out as far as when we got a chance to look at this. I'm a proponent of having dialogue. I wouldn't mind recommending to the applicant that I think we've successfully, at least in dialogue with the board, narrowed the issues. We've had a productive conversation. We've hit details. You know, there's no reason, I think, if we're just trying to wordsmith this, and again, the board's not going to vote on a final permit tonight anyway, and the chair can always control who speaks. No one has the right to speak at a hearing. You know, you can control who provides input. You can tell me to sit down right now if you'd like to. But I think, you know, if it's a matter of making sure we're on the same page regarding this board's authority, making sure we're on the same page as to exactly what the covenants are, which lots they apply to, and come up with a methodology to get that road improved in conjunction with the construction of this, I think that's a win.
Yeah, so there's a couple of things going on with it. Number one, you'd have to keep the hearing open if we're going to have a further dialogue.
Right.
And the other thing is, this is a very unique situation because this is their access road too. So you have the ability to make sure that there's a safe, adequate access to their project. And, you know, so it's unique. And again, this language was not from months ago. This was Mr. Burris's most recent communication to the board. I have no reason to doubt the applicant, but this was a recent letter that the covenants he's referring to have not been released. So, you know, again, we can talk about it further, and we know what you're after. You're after a safe, finished roadway.
Right. Yeah.
And you've heard a lot about that during your process. So if we can get there, great, but I'm not gonna, you know, as I said before, I feel comfortable defending this condition as written because it's based on Mr. Burris's well-considered recommendations to the board.
And it's
Right.
the issue of safety,
Right.
which is paramount to
Yes.
to approval of a 40B.
If I'm understanding this, my understanding of this is you're saying the covenants have not been released, and you're saying that they have. Am I understanding that, what you said?
So the first letter I wrote to the board in February was a thick letter. It attached all of the relevant documents. The planning board released the covenants as to Westport Lakes Drive, and all of the lots along Westport Lakes Drive, except for the lots on the left and right of Gulfview Lane, because Gulfview Lane was the remaining portion of the original subdivision. The covenants never applied to the bulk of the project site. They never applied to that. But they were released as to all the lots, and that's all spelled out in my original letter.
But not the lots.
So there are still
Two lots, and it's Gulfview Lane. So, you know, and this and again, I don't think, I understand the goal, and certainly the goal is present in writing this letter. I thought we had a conversation at the last hearing about, look back to my original letter, it said we were absolutely willing to consider conditions that talk about making sure that access is properly constructed and provided, and then it's up to us to work with the owner of Westport Lakes Drive. There's no relationship. If we want to go back down that rabbit hole, we can do that, but I'd prefer not to. But we hold enough sway to be able to, you know, work with
whatever
it.
you say.
Yeah. So I think, you know, this is complicated. It kind of goes to the core of some of the issues that we're trying to solve here. So I think, you know, again, the board's not going to vote on a decision tonight.
Yeah, we are.
Not on the, you're not going to sign the final
What
words.
we're gonna do is, my plan is to go through all this and vote to either grant or deny. But this obviously, this document then will be updated with our comments.
Right, exactly. And so,
Can we have a 5-minute recess, please?
Like, yeah, but I only do one at a time here.
Because we want 5 minutes.
yeah, I think that, so again, and I know time is tight. We just had a chance to talk about this at 3:30 this afternoon. I think it would be helpful, and you know, I think my impression now is that, you know, dialogue would be good to make sure we get this right, because I don't think it's, I think there are clear answers to this. I've done the math on which ones have been released and which ones haven't, and what the covenant actually says. And the covenant only says that, the covenant says a lot, so I'm not going to try to paraphrase it, but I know what the covenant is. I know a planning board covenant and the intent. And I would suggest that we're all better off, the applicant and the board, getting conditions, because I don't think the covenant actually accomplishes what you would want it to accomplish. But we'll get there. So do you mind if we take a few minutes?
5 minutes.
5 minutes.
5 minutes.
And then there's the,
No, we're gonna wait till the end.
at the end, okay. I just wanted to make sure that was.
Otherwise, we're gonna get back and forth and back and forth. I don't want to do that. What's that?
So.
Okay, so we got here.
Covenant's not released. Two lots in the undeveloped No, this, if you permit it and you don't.
Okay, I don't need to do this, we talked about it.
Anything that's ever been planned before this has had a septic system before that's there, and we can say yes or no. We can't say yes, because it's not there.
I mean, but it might be nice to refer to the covenants specifically, what we're talking about, versus just say the covenants, like which ones they are, like, you know, put it on an appendix or something.
You're not,
We had a chance.
you're not easily somewhere.
Yeah, but you can at least put in an appendix, so. Yeah, because it's all the hornet's nest, isn't it?
Essentially what it is.
Hold on 2 minutes.
Yeah.
Nicely done.
They would change this.
Yeah, 'cause I think we would all be like soaked by now. Because I wasn't last time. I was almost finished.
Sorry, Mr. Chairman. That was actually just about making sure that the board had the information that I had submitted on February 14th. And Paul Cusson and the applicant's representative had said they must not have seen the partial release, because we submitted this on February 14th in my letter that spelled this out. This is the partial release of covenants.
It was partial.
Correct, and we said that they retained as to Golfview Lane. So there are covenants as to Golfview Lane. In my letter, I spell out that we're asking this board to approve a new subdivision that encompasses Golfview Lane. And just as though we would go to the planning board and request them to say, hey, we want you to grant a new subdivision that includes the following conditions. So that's the request before the board. And these are tricky issues, and I do think that I haven't had a chance. I actually was able to leave town council a message this afternoon when I saw that language, but I haven't had a chance to converse with town council, and I really think that if the two of us work together, he can report to the board exactly what still exists on record, and we can get this right, because I think we all do want to get this right.
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy to have a dialogue with anybody.
Okay.
I have a fairly busy schedule. I wouldn't have a chance to get back on this afternoon, but.
I mean, it's why we
But
all.
I would want to talk to, as Cynthia pointed out, it would be nice to identify it more specifically anyway, but, I mean, my main dialogue would really be with Mr. Boris. I don't need, legal advice about it. I'm happy to clarify it further with him. What has been released and what hasn't been released, and what we're trying to accomplish. I think I know what they're trying to accomplish, which is to make sure that that roadway gets completed.
Right. I agree with that final conclusion, but I'm not even certain. I mean, these covenants date back to 2002. And so it's difficult to track over time exactly when the lots were reconfigured and then retitled and then ultimately released, and there was a bond and the bond was insufficient. And so I think I really would like to have a conversation with town council, and I think we'd all be, and maybe even with the planning board chair providing input, but there needs to be some dialogue for something as complex as this to make sure we get it done.
Attorney Butcher, can you just take an action to clarify these paragraphs? You understand what we're trying to get at with these paragraphs?
Right.
So you can work with Michael Burris and council if necessary.
Yeah.
To identify, to wordsmith these paragraphs such that, for the intent.
Accomplish what you need to accomplish,
Right.
which is to make sure that roadway gets completed.
Right. At least
And
up
we're talking
to,
about roadway, we're talking about Westport Lakes Drive, not Golfview Lane.
Correct.
right,
That's, I
up to
think,
the
is-
point of golf.
Yeah,
Correct.
I think that's where there's a little disconnect, because they're thinking they need to complete Golfview Lane, and we're saying, no, we need to make sure that Westport Lakes Drive is completed.
That's what's.
And again, I think you have jurisdiction to require that, or to at least have conditions that make sure that it gets done.
Yeah. If not, I
Do
think,
it by, in a way that the applicant's happy with it, the way it's conditioned. So it's in your jurisdiction, it's in accordance with what's being recommended to you by the town planner. And I'm happy to further dialogue with them, but we know what you're trying to accomplish.
Okay.
because in my mind, it's like, if we can't accomplish that, then it's a denial, because it's a safety issue of access to the property. So we're trying to put a condition on this to make sure that they can still do their project, but making sure it's safe
Yes.
for all.
And if they're unhappy with the condition in the end, they can appeal it, we can defend them.
Yeah. I
Well,
think
if we were not to-
Situation having a 40B off a private road.
If,
That's not,
Yeah.
if we were not to vote on this tonight, how does that affect our time frame?
you need you don't have to vote tonight. Right now, You have to close the
We have
public
to
hearing
close the
unless it's
hearing.
extended.
Right.
If you close the public hearing tonight, you have 40 days to deliberate and issue a decision.
Right.
You would have no further input
But
after
if-
the close of the hearing.
But if we wait, so you folks can clarify
No,
this.
There will be no
No more
clarification
clarifying.
after closing the public hearing.
No, that's what I mean, so we
We
wouldn't
need to keep
close
it
it.
open, I think,
Uh,
as long as it's acceptable to
That's
the
not-
applicants, right? Which then moves the clock.
But as long as we all understand what it is we're going for, having Attorney Pucci work on the wording on this, because what he's gonna do is he's gonna, there's several things in here that have to be wordsmithed as a final product. And that would be then sent to the board members for review.
Right.
I mean, that's generally the way all our decisions work. We make a decision, and then we usually have Maria write up the decision, the board members review it to make sure that it's consistent with what we all agreed to.
Yeah, that would be something later in the process.
Later in the
here,
process.
Because what you're contemplating here is you receiving further input with counsel, with, not me, counsel, applicant's counsel, applicant, the town planner. If you're contemplating further input to your decision, they've got to agree to keep the public hearing open. Otherwise, you're gonna do that process that you just said. You're gonna close the hearing, vote what you wanna see, and then we're gonna prepare a proposed final for you to deliberate on and,
Right.
vote.
Right. Yes. Okay, moving on. Again, at the top of page 7, it talks about fire hydrants. Maybe you got no fire hydrants in there.
We actually do show fire hydrants on the plan.
You do?
Yes.
Okay.
We do show fire hydrants on the plan that's before the board, but we,
What are the fire hydrants serviced by?
I'm sorry, what's that?
What are the fire hydrants serviced by? Where's it getting the water from?
The tank that we spec'd for the fire service.
Oh,
The
okay.
discussion
You have
of the
hydrants that-
concrete versus
Okay.
the.
All right, no,
And I think just the idea is that if there's anything, that ultimately the fire department has the right to approve the location of fire.
yeah, okay, okay. I had just a question on top of page 8, B11. The minimum lot size frontage of no less than 50 feet, I thought it was 100. Did I get that wrong?
Yeah, I believe it is 50 feet.
Ours is 100.
Ours was 100 and, no, ours was,
Ours is 100.
I thought I saw the plans, it was 100.
I think they're asking for a waiver that, no, they're in 50. I think they were asking for a waiver to do 50. But they were gonna have a larger rear setback.
Remember, Roger, this refers to what's shown in the plans, not what's required, so you'd be granting a waiver.
Yes, right.
What number do you want? I'm sorry.
B11. Top of page 7. Was B12, right stuff to B11.
Yeah, so Mr. Chairman, this was
Again,
one of those.
I thought it was 100, that's, if it was 50, that's,
I think the local regulation might have been
It is.
50 there, and this goes back to the comment, well, if you're waiving it, then what's the minimum? So we put in the minimum as 50,
No, our minimum is 100.
under the local regulation.
under the
believe
local
so.
regulation.
Yeah,
Yes,
so
Yeah.
this is waived.
right.
What are you saying is 100?
Isn't our frontage is 100?
Frontage.
150?
It was
150, oh.
Yeah,
For our normal subdivision.
right.
Used to be
You know what
100.
that's referring to then? Is that, that's saying that they're getting a waiver to 50 feet.
Right. And I mean, what's our front lot line to the house? That's 25, right?
Yes.
And they're asking for a waiver to 20.
The only thing they're
But
asking for
giving-
is a front yard 20 rather than 25.
And a frontage. Frontage is how much is, no, frontage is how much space from,
Frontage is,
is
yeah.
from side to side.
Mhm.
And then the front setback is from the front of the frontage to this house.
Right,
So they're asking for a smaller frontage and a smaller, from the the frontage to the beginning of the house
Right.
to 20, but they're giving us a 25-foot rear end, which is, we only have a 6-foot. So
Right.
I'm not, I'm okay with the 20 if we're getting 25 in the back.
And the side yard is the same.
And the side yard the same. Are we okay with only 50 feet of frontage? But it's a development, so it's sort
Yes.
of always that way. isn't
Right.
it?
Yes.
But what is, did you say the plan, the actual plans show 50 or 100?
50 is the minimum.
Okay, the next, and it's just a typo, I think. Applicant, the next paragraph, P12, applicable sheets of the final plans, I assume it says shall be signed by. It's just,
Yeah, there are actually a few typos.
yeah, I mean, I just picked it up.
There's
so I
reference to condo in one place that
I
needs
know.
to get fixed up.
Um,
B16, applicant okay with that? The septic regulation 6A?
Yes, yeah, we talked about, we were willing to, assuming all of these other details get worked out, we were willing to abide by the nitrogen reduction requirements, so we were okay with that.
So
This
none of the houses would be more than 30 foot wide?
Yep.
Is that what we're showing here?
I'm sorry.
Is that accurate?
I'm not sure who's asking the question.
Well, because if you got 50 foot frontage, you're taking 10 feet on each side for side yard, that leaves you only 30 feet for a house. Is that what you
Yeah.
want?
Yeah, so
Okay.
there are other conditions in here that,
It's not that all lots are 50 feet.
This is the minimum.
What you had asked us to put, rather than just a blank waiver, you said, you asked us to put in a number.
Right.
So there is, I think, a few lots that are 50. It's not all at 50 feet.
Okay.
So that's why that 50 feet.
But for the one that is, it would be, or a
That
couple
means
that
your house is
are,
only 30 feet wide.
it's a 30 foot wide. Okay.
One that you passed over, Roger, I didn't know, B4, colors for the proposed building.
Yeah.
I struck it, but I said restore it. It's part of the
I don't, I'm going to tell them what color to make it.
Mr. Chairman, just for point, the 50 feet applies mostly to the pie shape.
They don't open up.
So that 50 feet.
No problem.
Shoot out at an angle.
No problem.
Yeah, I know, I mean, you struck out the color, I mean, I don't think it's our purview to tell them what color the house it should be.
What number was that?
I don't remember it being part of
I'd like them
it.
to-
Again, that was out there at language.
Right.
What number was that about the color of the house?
B4.
Before.
B4?
It's struck out.
Yeah, right now,
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Okay, the next thing I have is on HOA.
Yeah, what?
it's 5.
And you, I mean, there's several paragraphs, it's all of C4, starting on page 10.
C4.
HOA adopted, yada, yada, yada.
Before you get to that, I
Okay.
had a question about the NIPD's permit, B18.
Oh,
Yep.
So I tend to not say if it's required, I mean, either it's required or it isn't, in which case we would have the conditions accordingly, but is it required? I would ask. B18B,
Yeah, it's required for a project like this. It's an online form that you go on and fill out, so we can provide that.
so don't put applicable, just
That's fine.
delete the applicable part.
just 1 second. There was another part about that with the SWIP, because you would have required the SWIP anyway.
Does it say if applicable?
Yeah, but well, I'll do it consistent with that. That sounds good.
Okay.
Where were you, Roger? Sorry.
HOA, I read through this, a lot of words in here. What we had discussed and was, at what point does the contractor responsible for HOA activities, and what this says is, if I read it right, is that the contractor is responsible until the last unit is built. I don't think that's...
Which condition are you looking at specifically? And I think we touched on this at the last hearing, but didn't come to a conclusion as to what the board wanted. And again, I provided this as a proposed HOA regimen and conditions consistent with what the board was looking for. But if there are changes that need to be completed around the margins, then we can certainly talk about those.
Why do you have a problem with that, Roger? It's kind of more burdensome on them.
No, what I'm trying to find in here, and it's not obvious.
Mr. Chairman, we could put Mr. Chairman, we could put a condition, typically on an HOA, and I think maybe some of these things need to be changed, but typically on an HOA, the developer is going to be involved until 75% of the units are sold.
Right, and that's
what they call it, and we need to put that in there. It's what they call a turnover event.
Yes.
And the developer will set up an HOA account from day one. So what happens is that we're going to establish a budget, and we talked about this a little bit, that each homeowner at the time of closing puts in money into an operating fund, usually for 3 or 4 months. And so the developer collects from the people as the units are sold. When 75% of the units have been sold, there's a turnover event in which he would turn over all the activity, all the books, all the money to the HOA. This says 25, we would like, if possible, 25% of the number of members of the HOA to come from the affordable units, 25% of it, but only if possible. Some people may not want to be involved. So up until that point in time, the developer is responsible, but is maintaining an HOA account during the process, and could use some of those funds from the HOA to take care of the normal maintenance, not the construction, but the normal maintenance.
Okay.
Typically, the big thing is the snow plowing. So.
The one that I'm looking at is the long paragraph I, which it talks about, like you said, you have different funds. There's capital funds, there's maintenance repair funds. It says the applicant shall fund the maintenance and repairs for 1 year's estimated maintenance and repair costs prior to issuance of the last occupancy permit and turnover to the HOA.
No, I think that should be changed.
Well, you're the one that wrote it.
I didn't write it.
So,
okay.
And that's the reason why you have a problem. And then the budget shall provide for all homeowners,
yes,
except affordable, shall provide annual contributions equal to 1/30th the estimated replacement. Well, there's 38. This isn't consistent with, I think, what we had discussed before.
So the 30th, the 1/30th is intended to project a 30-year lifespan. And so annually you put in 1/30th, and after 30 years, you're going to have the full replacement sitting there available.
Full replacement of what?
There's one for the stormwater basins, the bottom of the stormwater basins, and one for the septic leaching field.
So 38.
Shall provide annual contribution to the long-term cost. Okay, that's the long-term one. Okay, I understand that now. But the other part, it says that the applicant is going to pay for the 1 year's estimated maintenance and repair costs prior to issuance of the last occupancy permit and turnover. What says to me is that the applicant is going to take all of the HOA until the last occupancy permit has been issued.
So this did not determine when turnover would occur. This anticipated turnover would occur after all the units were sold. If that's, and again, this was sort of proposed generic language. We can propose a paragraph on turnover, and we can submit it to town council. We can have some dialogue on it and then submit it
But
to
if
the
I
board.
close the hearing tonight, you can't do that.
Well, so again, I think we're having a productive conversation. I think we're solving problems and we're making sure we get this right, which is our goal. I'd like to get this right. I don't think there's any reason, given the work we've done, to run off at this point. So I'd recommend to the applicant to, a continuance to the next hearing for dialogue and, making sure we have a consensus on what's required. So with that, we can propose changes to this to come up with turnover. What's the board's thoughts or pleasure on turnover? What are your concerns?
Well,
I can tell you that Mr. Cusson wanted more flexible language. I proposed language that was more in line with what the board was saying, that I think is reasonable to satisfy the board's concerns. But if we want to identify exactly what...
But the things that I'm concerned about are, when you first start off and you only have 3 or 4 units, small number of units, that, yes, you can collect an HOA from them, but it's got to be scaled as if they were one of 38.
Yeah, that's how they do it.
That's right.
And then they fill in the rest.
And then you fill in the rest until some point in time, 75%, whatever where there's a sufficient amount of money there to actually do the maintenance job. This doesn't say that.
And again, this is subject to discussion and we can talk about it. This does not say that, you're correct. Some projects insist that the applicant fund shoulder to shoulder with the sold lots, but if there are lots that are unsold, then it doesn't make sense for the applicant to pay to fund full homeowners association fees for unsold lots. So that would be a disproportionate burden on the applicant to fund 38 lots when they've only sold 2 lots and we're funding 36. The goal is that when there's turnover or at the end of the project, that from there on out, the applicant's going to make sure that they fund an additional, they'll give a little bit extra for maintenance and immediate maintenance so that that's properly funded. And before turnover, the applicant's maintaining, because there are the board's conditions to make sure that the project's maintained and units are still being sold, so the project needs to be in compliance. But the critical event for us is the turnover event. So at that point, then there may be contributions for the remaining lots by the applicant, but generally, it's just, in my experience, they fund a maintenance and repair, not the full amount of unsold lots.
Right, and then when it turns over, it's funded fully for a year. Is that how it's written?
Correct. Well,
So
the
they
maintenance
top
and
it
repair.
off. They top it off.
Top off maintenance and repair, and at that point, once all the units are sold, at that point, you still have a relatively, the applicant is going to have a bond, surety bond, so we're going to have to make sure that everything's done at that point. The planning board, this board is not going to release their surety until everything is buttoned up, and then that's when the 1 in 30 starts. And for the next 30 years, you're building up reserves so that
To take care of the replenishment of
after
Of
30 years.
the big capital expenses.
Correct. The end.
So what happens if you only sell eight of the lots? And so you've got 8 families down there. Who covers that?
Well, hold
So
on.
like if you only, I just want to make sure I understand it right. So 10 years from now, you've only sold 8 lots. The developer is still involved in maintenance and everything else. Doesn't just walk away and leave the people living on that street to hold them back.
If the surety is managed properly, there's proper surety. So that's what the town ran into in the past.
Mm-hmm.
And, a project like this, I think, we have surety language in here that's intended to avoid that result. But, I mean, the surety prevents just everything from falling apart. But then as far as funding, Paul, do you want to describe? Because it varies from project to project. And again, we haven't had a dialogue on this, and I haven't fully vetted this with the client. This was proposed language. And we wanted to see exactly where the board was going with it, and then we can negotiate. So
Typically it is, we are not the developer of Westport Lakes Road, and what you're identifying is with Westport Lakes Road, what happened, right? 5 houses sold, and who's maintaining that road and that sort of thing. The developer here, the intent is to build these houses. There's no money in just sitting on the land and nothing happening to it. So the developer is going to be responsible for all subsequent developers, okay? And we can do that in the form of I'm not sure what mechanism, a deed or something like that. But they are going to be responsible to maintain that road up until the turnover of it.
Whatever that is, however long that takes.
And I don't know what's going on Westport Lakes Road, but it's the same, that should have maybe happened there, but that's correct. So that developer and subsequent developers. So if developer A goes bust and a bank takes it over, the bank is responsible. Subsequent owners, okay, and they sell it to another developer, that developer is responsible. And as Chris mentioned, there's a surety for the construction of that road as well. That surety can be in a number of different ways. The attorneys can work out the issue of surety. I don't know if that answers your question.
Now, you indicated a little while ago about...
Similar to Briggs Landing.
Yeah, but I specifically wanted to ask about, you mentioned a little while ago about the turnover, you said 75%?
That's typical, yeah.
Okay, is that in here? Because I couldn't find
No,
out.
we're gonna have to put that in.
That's-
What Chris is saying, he's gonna have to discuss it with town council and come up with the proper wording, but that's what we're suggesting, is that be done, and that's why the team has agreed, and Chris will talk to you about the date of extending, the time by which you must close the hearing, in order to accomplish these things and other things that have been discussed this evening.
Okay.
You had...
Okay, the next thing I have is page 13, C10. It talks about...
Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry. I do want to close the loop on that, because I want to make sure we get it correct here.
Yeah.
So the question that's, I think what we're talking about is whether the developer is paying in to the fund if they haven't sold all the lots. So the lots that the developer still owns, is somebody paying in on that? And I just want to make sure we're all on the same page. What we're saying is that starts at turnover. So at turnover, if 75% of the lots are sold, the remaining 25 lots, the remaining 25% of the lots, we can write the condition that the developer will pay in on those lots. Will be beholden to the homeowners association
For top
to
off for a
contribute.
year.
Yes.
No, in
No,
addition
not
to
one.
the year. In addition to the year. We're saying when turnover occurs,
Right.
that's when it triggers that, hey, you own those lots, you gotta pay HOA fees on those lots.
Mhm.
It's at turnover.
But prior to that, again, if there are only 8 houses, then the 8 houses pay 1/38 of what the, it's a portion value.
Correct.
And the contractor is gonna take, for the maintenance part of it, can use that money for maintenance, but is going to do all of the maintenance.
Yes, is responsible to satisfy, the conditions of the permit
Right.
and, the bond requirement, or the surety requirements, whatever they are, those ongoing requirements. But what we would propose for our condition is that once 75% happens, then the developer starts paying it in addition to the 1 year initial funding.
Right, yeah. I just want to make it really clear that up until that point, the homeowners are paying an apportioned amount.
Yes, yes.
And the contractor is essentially paying the rest.
Is responsible
Is
for.
responsible.
They don't pay into it, so
They're
it's
paying
not
into it, they're
so it's not an
responsible.
account that all of a sudden gets ballooned. It's only if necessary do they top off.
Exactly, and if there's an enforcement issue and somebody says, hey, you haven't mowed the lawn there, then the board can order the building inspector to say, hey, you haven't, this is getting out of hand, they're not maintaining, and that's how it's enforced in the interim.
So if you have sold, say, 40% of the houses, for simple math, the developer is responsible for the other 60%.
No,
No.
no.
What's happening?
Okay.
Developers-
Hold on.
The developer will maintain, will do the snow plowing, will maintain the roadway. So only 5 or 6 houses are sold. Those people pay as they're closing, they pay, and they pay their
But that money,
1/38
but that
share.
money is not touched.
Right.
The developer keeps paying until so the
In the
70,
beginning, it's
until
not
it's turned
touched,
up.
but once the account is to the point, sometimes it can be.
Yeah.
Depends on what the issue is, and that's up to the HOA, who is the developer, to really determine. So there's no burden, if you will, on the individual buyer. They're only responsible for their 1/38 share
Mhm.
of the total budget. So we have to prepare a budget. Glad to share that with you, but we
It's
have
in the
to-
permit.
We
It's in
have
the
to prepare a budget that meets certain lending requirements, Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, and all that sort of thing. So we prepare that budget, and everybody is responsible for 1/38 of that. So you get 2 houses sold, that's not enough money to do, we get a big snowstorm, that's not enough money to do. The developer, contractor developer is responsible for that, and that's usually the big issue, is the snow removal.
And making sure that
The brush.
what?
The brush?
Yes, the
Yeah.
brush and the,
Detention
filtration areas and all that are maintained.
Yes,
Yes,
that's
yes.
it. It's 75%. Once 75% of the units are, then the developer's paying the remaining 25 that have not been sold.
Right.
That's when they
Versus the
start to
full-
pay.
Paying the full Monty.
But at that
Like-
point, the HOA takes
Yes,
over.
at that point, the HOA is responsible. Before the 75, the developer's responsible.
Right, okay. Yeah, it
Okay,
doesn't say
so
that
we
here.
will
Yeah.
propose language that reflects that.
Okay.
Now, doesn't the affordables affect that a little bit?
Yeah.
In here, it says that they're paying equal share.
Right.
I gotta take a look at that.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think the budget is gonna be all that, I mean, you've got to take care of the septic system, which is, a few dollars, but the rest of it is primarily, because the road is built, so there's not a lot of expenses. In a condominium, typically, they pay their share based on value. So if you're buying, keep the math easy, if you're buying a condo for $1 million, and I pay 500, which is really, okay, if I pay 500, your fees are gonna be twice as much as mine.
Right.
In an HOA, it tends to be everybody paying the same. Because what happens from a marketing point of view, and later on, you're living with a neighbor, you're getting the same services, so somebody says, how come you're only
Why
paying
is
half
there
of what
a
I'm
different
paying? You're
market?
getting the same services.
Mhm.
So Chris is correct in here, so I think we need to take a look at the total budget. And I think that it's appropriate in this case, that they all pay the same.
Does Briggs Landing all pay the same?
I'm sorry?
Does Briggs Landing all pay the same, do you know?
I haven't looked at that in a long time. Briggs Landing,
I would think it would work the same way.
well, the town now has accepted the road,
Right.
so they're not paying. They were at one point in time.
But they still
'Cause
must
that
have
was
any,
built over 5 or 6 phases.
they must still have some HOA expense.
There might be some in the back phase. I
Okay.
mean, there've been no problems at Briggs Landing.
But the other part, as far as the affordables, we really haven't talked about that much. But they're phased in, the 25% of the project.
It
But
says
if-
in the permit that
Right.
for every third market rate, one
That's what I'm
affordable has
saying.
to be built. And
Yes.
and I think you put that in the document,
Right.
or somebody put it in the document. And that's a standard
Right.
on the mass housing.
Yeah,
And the price that the affordable buyer pays, one of the calculations that's used in determining the sales price is the HOA fee.
yeah.
So they can't pay any more than 30% of their income for principal, interest, taxes, and all that. So that gets all calculated.
So that includes the HOA fee, so they're not gonna pay the same as everybody else, like you just said.
No, I think in this particular case, I think they will. I mean, I gotta take a look at it, but I think they will. And that's the way it's written right now, is that Chris put in there
Right.
that they're all paying the same.
Right, the 138.
Correct. Every market rate and affordable all pay the same.
But when they're calculating their ability to be in the affordable rate, they have to be able to pay not only the mortgage, but the taxes and homeowners.
HOA fees, taxes, homeowner insurance, all of
Yeah.
that stuff. So the regulations, when we do the housing and the lottery and all that, so when we get approval on the price, we have to show that sales matrix. And they can't pay any more than 30%, and there's a 10% window for other factors.
Okay?
One of the things, Chairman has, oh, sorry.
Are you done?
No, I was just saying, one of the other things that's not in here, we can discuss it later, is local preference.
Right.
The board has the right to request local preference. We would help you with that, if you have to submit it. So 75% of the 70% of the 25%
Go
can be
one.
set aside. No, you've got, whatever that is, you can set aside that. So so you can set aside local preference based on people who are living in the town, people who go to school in the town, people that work in the town, people that work for a company that's located in the
Right.
town. That's got to be approved by the subsidizing agency, and the town has to submit justification for that. But we usually assist the town in providing that justification. So that's something you might want to think about as well.
It's in the draft.
I didn't see it.
Yeah.
In your draft.
Okay.
I recommend that if we're going to keep the hearing open, that the applicant work with Chris to give us track change edits to the HOA provisions that were just discussed, because hopefully they get that. You were just saying.
Okay.
Because everything that was proposed in the HOA was from them originally.
Right, yes, yes.
Yes. Subject matter.
Okay, moving on, the next, it's really a question, C10, talk about the project remains private in perpetuity, What if in 40 years from now, the town decides to make it a town road?
Fine.
No, can't do it.
You can always amend the condition.
I mean, there's a reason why you want to put in, forever in here?
I will say that generally boards request that.
Oh, okay,
And if you don't want that, we're happy to take it out.
okay.
And don't go from a legal point of view, if someone later on, in 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 20 years from now, if the homeowners want to get together and come to the town and say, we're paying our full rate of taxes, why aren't we getting full services? They can always present that to the Board of Selectmen, Board of Selectmen can do what they want in that case, I think.
Then would there continue to be a monitoring agency?
On the affordables, yes.
Yeah,
No, that's a different issue though.
Right.
yeah.
That's in perpetuity. Well,
That
in other
isn't-
words, the affordable buyer, right, in Westport, I think it's gonna be, I don't know, around 275,000. The house right next door is gonna be, I don't know, 750,000, right? But they can't buy the house for 275 and turn around and sell it for 600 and put the money in their pocket. There's a deed rider
No.
that's attached to every single deed.
That's why I'm saying about the monitoring agency continuing in perpetuity, even if they did go to the town and get it
There
separated.
still is a monitoring agent.
Right.
And what happens upon resale, the buyer has to contact the monitoring agent. That monitoring agent then determines what that sales price would be
Correct.
in 5 years, 10 years, 20 years from now. So that monitoring agent stays into effect as long as the deed rider is in effect.
Yeah.
Okay, my next question is on page 16. What I don't see on here, or maybe it's, I'm not reading it right, is that all the infrastructure will be built at one time. And by that I mean the roads, the leaching fields, all that is going to be built at the beginning of the project. You're not going to just build enough roads for 4 houses and then build enough roads for 6 houses and I don't see that.
So that is currently not required in the permit. The way it's written is that infrastructure has to be built sufficient to service the house lot that's being proposed. And we talked about whether the board wanted to alter that. So the language regarding, it's up in the, it would be up in the surety section. We would intend to build it in logical phases. So perhaps up to the intersection, build the phase to the left, and then once that's sold out,
But that
build the
isn't what
phase
you
to
said
the
a couple of
right.
months ago.
We did kick around a lot of different ideas, but anything is up for discussion in this context. I mean, we're trying to get the details here. The applicant's proposal would be to build it in phases,
But the septic has to be,
with the septic completed, yeah.
yeah, the septic has to be completed no
Right.
matter what.
It's infrastructure sufficient to serve a certain number of units, and you have to get the septic system completed. So, I think the way it's written allows for flexibility. What's the board's thought on that topic?
He said, I was always under the impression that you're going to build all the infrastructure, because that's what you said a couple of months ago. The infrastructure will be built all at once.
No, what was said was that all of what Christian was the one who mentioned it and indicated that it would be roughed in,
Yeah,
but not completed.
yeah, that's different, yes.
Okay, so.
There's a difference between, yes, but what you're saying now is you're only going to even just, not even clear the,
Well, the board didn't want us to clear.
Yeah, I agree.
what?
The
I
board-
want the road done.
There was discussion where the board said, well, we don't want you going and clearing the whole thing.
That's right.
So then we had discussed about, that was the board, or some members of the board, and then we talked about putting in the road going in, and then when we come to the top, either go to the left or to the right, so that would be basically built in 2 phases. We have to put a septic system in for all of them.
Yeah, why tear it
So-
all up if it all goes bust?
So that could be.
Well, because
we can
if you
do
put
it.
the road in, they're probably going to build something.
Well,
Say that again?
No. Never mind.
No, I've seen cases where they've gone in and grubbed the whole thing out
Mhm.
and gone bankrupt, and then
That's right.
it stays in pretty bad shape.
right.
Mm.
So my recommendation would be that it be limited to two phases, basically the road going up,
Okay,
Blue Lane.
all right, it doesn't say that here either.
Yeah, well, I think you should revise that part.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, because, if you are phasing it.
Spell it out.
Yeah.
Well,
Okay.
there again, was at the request,
Well, so I think this is where, normally town council and council get together and say, I think I heard this, I think I heard that, the board asked for this, and then we have this discussion. So now we're having the discussion, I think, we understand the concern about clearing the whole site, but we also understand the concern about having the major infrastructure completed at some point. So, I think we can play with the surety language to spell out phasing and how that's gonna be proposed. And what I'll do is I'll get this to town council as soon as I can, and he can circulate it to the board, and hopefully you can individually, actually, just to gather your thoughts before the hearing. If the chair has a specific objection, you can certainly communicate that.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make one other point on G6, and that is the ADA. The language needs to be changed on the ADA, in that if we have a handicap, the regulations require us that if we have an applicant who is disabled, that we need to make reasonable accommodations to assist that disability. We haven't had too many in the past. Unfortunately, many people who are disabled don't have the adequate funds to purchase a home. But those that have, we've done several, and the regulations there again require that we do reasonable accommodations. It doesn't mean that we're going to do it for free, but it's a reasonable accommodation depending upon what that disability is. Whereas the language that was in here before says that we have to comply with the ADA, the American Disability Act. The American Disability Act does not apply to single family. It's D6, the last half of it.
Which paragraph you looking at?
D is in dog, D6, page 14.
Right.
Okay.
It's the,
Okay.
it's the last, it's kind of, it starts out about the phasing of the affordable units.
Yep.
It's the last half of the last sentence in that paragraph.
Now, it says here, maybe I misheard you, that this says that the applicant, you guys, must make it fully accessible under the ADA standards at the applicant's cost.
That's what that says, that's a cut and paste from a rental. If you're doing a rental.
So that was language that had been
But you're saying
requested.
that shouldn't apply here.
That should not, that does not apply here.
Yeah, so we gotta get rid of that.
Well,
Yeah.
Okay.
We have to alter
you
it.
could put in there that the developer has agreed to make a reasonable accommodations
Yeah.
regarding an applicant who is handicapped. I mean,
Yeah, we'll take care of that. Because part of it is, there may be specific accessibility issues for specific applicants. This is generic, so for single-family houses, this language is carried over from a rental. So
Yeah.
we're gonna change this to the single-family language. So I'll propose that to town council.
Yeah. I mean, it could require a ramp.
Someone that was blind, so it wasn't,
Yeah.
there were other issues that we had to do.
There could be a lot of things. Yeah.
Are the houses built for the affordables before, or does you know who's buying it before the building is started?
No, not necessarily.
Not necessarily, but if somebody that needs accessible changes wins the lottery or is the lottery recipient, then there are requirements where the applicant, the developer, has to work with
Right, like widen
that
the-
owner
widen the
if
doors.
that's the accommodation, but
Yeah.
it might not be, for
But they're
instance.
saying if it's a
Exactly,
wheelchair, it
right.
would be widening the doors, no
Ledges and
threshold,
whatnot, yeah. So
maybe
it's
lowering the counter.
specific to the buyer. But I think we're gonna get the language. Paul, we're gonna be here till 3 in the morning. We know the issues that need to be addressed here.
Can you explain what G2 is on page 18? This tri-party agreement?
Yeah, so that's where an option is that we would have the construction lender act as a surety for the bond in lieu of cash. So there are multiple ways to secure completion of the infrastructure once an amount's determined. And this was drafted to give some flexibility as to what the exact methodology would be, but essentially it's a surety agreement where what usually happens is the applicant deposits cash with the bank, or the applicant has credit with the bank, and the bank says, here's an agreement that I will stand in the shoes of the developer if the developer doesn't come through and finish the project.
I mean, they are used, it will be subject to your approval anyway.
Okay.
You know, we'll double check this now. If there are concerns about this surety language, we'll make sure that, you know, it works for us. I think this is what we proposed initially because it's worked on other projects. I think town council was okay with it. But if there's something else that makes sense from the board, you can convey it to town council and.
All right, I don't have any other comment on the decision.
Where's the mailbox issue? Is that in the decision or?
Yeah, that's the decision. I believe it's one of the plan requirements.
That's all that's been, can you get the amendments, or are you going to talk about the amendments?
It's under C. It's C14, I believe.
That's just the only thing I have. I just kind of wanted that explained a little bit.
That's good.
Just looking on page 19, could one of you speak to the striking of those two paragraphs?
Yeah, before we get to that, did you get your question answered with the mailbox?
I'll let.
What page? Sorry.
I'm sorry?
I'm sorry,
19.
where were you?
19, section I2 and I3.
Under amendments. There's two large paragraphs that have been taken out. I was just,
Yeah, I don't think it's necessary because any project change is governed by the regulations that are specified in the previous paragraphs, and I just think it confuses it. And also to contemplate that they're gonna build other buildings or structures I just didn't think was a good thing to have in there.
okay.
So basically I didn't think it was necessary, and I don't like to have unnecessary provisions and permits because then it creates confusion.
Right.
Well, what did the other paragraphs mean? And then, I3 I just disagreed with legally. I don't agree with that unless I could be convinced that this would be governed by the comprehensive permit regulations, in my opinion, not Chapter 48, Section 6, any type of alteration.
Those two
You know, so,
work together. That wasn't
Yeah.
intended to, it was
So-
for purposes of this.
Yeah.
It was specific to this project, so
Yeah.
we had no problem deleting this.
Thanks.
I have a question for you. I mentioned it in an earlier hearing, but we have not discussed it at all, and that is the potential of someone, another developer or someone else, buying a couple of lots to provide access to another project beyond this, in that whole other area where there's nothing now. And my own thought is, I've seen it occur here, where that sort of thing happens, and I think we should have something in here that indicates that this project cannot be used as an access to any other potential future project. I don't know how the board feels about that, but to me, I mean, we're already overloading a single road going in a very long distance.
It would require a project change, right? What do you think of that?
Yeah, it would certainly require some further relief and permit. I think there's a difference between permitting and a restriction that you're describing, and my suggestion would be the type of restriction you're describing goes beyond permitting because it kind of affects property rights, but clearly it would be subject to additional permits and board approval for something like that to occur. But I think trying to restrict access and property rights is a bridge too far.
So are you saying that someone could come in and buy these lots and not build on them and then eventually use them as access for another property?
Yeah, in my opinion, it would violate the terms of the
Yeah.
permit.
It was different for the private, when Westport Lakes was subdivided, it was different when they were able to take off 2 of those lots to provide access to Gulfview Lane. But since this is a 40B and an affordable housing project, they all have to be lots. They can't.
Right.
You
Yeah,
can't
that one was
convert them to
permitted as
something.
a traditional subdivision. This, it's
Yeah.
a package deal.
Right.
Yeah, it's a package deal, so.
They'd have to come back for a project change on it. I mean,
So you-
I don't like to pick out things that they would have to come back for, because then it creates an inference that, well, they don't have to come back for these other things. So I tend to not give examples of something that would require them to come back for a project change. I feel pretty comfortable that's not gonna happen without the town knowing about it. But somebody buys a lot to put a way through it. You know, that, and then it would be an enforcement issue. This violates the terms of
It's against the plan. The plan is, the houses are on it.
yeah, which is recorded. So, I mean, I would recommend against singling out, like I say, an example of something that they would have to come back to you for. I mean, it's a stretch, is it not?
I'm not, I personally am not certain that they would have to come back. I mean, maybe legalities, but in reality, you know, like we say, okay, a second floor can't be heated. Next thing you know, it's got 2 double bathrooms and all that, because the building department, or the planning department, here's a lot, it's got appropriate width, and yeah, sure, we can use that as access. I don't know if they would point it back to this here, because there's nothing in here that says that they can't do that.
Yeah, there is, because you're approving.
38
you're
houses.
Getting waivers under 40B for this particular plan, so it's enforceable in itself. The approved plan.
So they're forced to build
In other
a
words,
house.
they can't do 40 lots.
They can't leave empty lots.
They can't leave empty lots.
No, they
I
can't.
mean, they
themselves.
can leave empty lots if they end up with empty lots, but
Yeah.
they can't.
They
put-
can't-
you know,
they
they
can't
can't rent
go-
out garage space on an empty
Yeah,
lot.
they can't convert the empty lots into something
chicken
other
farm.
than what it was intended to be,
Yeah.
which is a house lot. Versus, it's different in a traditional subdivision, because you're just saying, I'm subdividing this big parts of property into buildable lots. And then sometimes they don't get built on, and sometimes the
They wanna use
buildable
it
lots
for a
have some
different
purpose.
purpose.
But here, the purpose is, yeah, yeah.
So if they can't sell it, they can't sell it, but they can't convert it to another use without coming back.
Okay.
Jerry's not convinced.
can make a garden, we're agricultural zone, they can make a garden or something, in it, whatever, doesn't matter.
Okay, so no other comments on that. Then I'm going to move on to the waiver list. Now, the waiver list we've gone over several times. This has all been reviewed by the petitioner, by our consultant, by the Board of Health, by Concom. There were two major issues that were outstanding, pretty much on the last pages. One of them we've already talked about, which is the perk rate, and we have words that we could be wordsmithing as a condition rather than as part of the waiver. The second one is section 6, septic system locations with that 100 feet. And in here we actually also have a Board of Health recommendation that we received on how to handle this. So I would recommend that we then implement the Board of Health recommendation as a condition.
Where is that, Roger?
You said section 6?
Yes, section 6, septic system location requirement.
B16.
I wish these had
Well,
page
what
numbers.
did you go, page numbers? Way at the end, like 3 4 sheets from the end.
Section 6?
Yes.
Oh, okay. And what are you saying we have?
We have a letter from the Board of Health regarding that 100-foot separation.
Okay.
So I recommend that whatever the recommendation from the Board of Health be implemented as a condition.
What is the date?
Yeah, my 6 comes after 7, so.
Oh, okay.
I don't know if I put the date on it. No, let's see, I think I have the
That's
letter
right.
somewhere.
Exactly.
And that's followed by section 3.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No, because that's a different bylaw, the section 3.
Yeah.
I was just wondering the date of the recommendation that you had.
Yeah.
If it came through Maria, I'm sure I have it, but it would save time to know what it is.
July 8th.
July 8th, 2025.
Yep. And you added condition B16.
Oh, good, okay.
And I think we talked at the last time about you might want to reference.
Yeah, good. That was addressed in B16, so
Was
I'll
it?
tweak that in the waiver. So I did see that 780.
Okay, yes.
letter, because that's how I did that condition, I was just reference. And then I'll reference that in the waiver,
All
cross-reference.
right, okay.
Now, I'm using a waiver list dated June 18th. Is that the same one everybody else has?
Yes.
Okay.
Anybody else have any comments on the waiver list?
So I'd recommend that the applicant provide track change edits to their original language per what you discussed tonight.
Right, so you can see what the changes are.
I would recommend they don't touch any of my language. If they have a problem with it or objection or something they need to do, make a comment. You know, have a comment box. Object or whatever, so that we don't lose. You don't have to
Your original
redo
thinking.
anything, yeah.
Yes.
And then we'll work on that issue of the release of the covenants and what you're trying to accomplish there. And I think that was it.
Now that, the HOA,
The HOA is, that's what I'm saying, the applicant should provide
right,
a track change layer,
of that.
because that's their original language.
Yep.
So they'll be able to see that, that's new. So what I'm saying, don't have them touch any of my edits. If they have a problem with it, they should just put a comment.
Right, yes. Any other, comments from the board before we open it up to the public? No? Okay. Open to the public. May want to comment?
Good evening, Brent Pereira, 26 Westport Lakes Drive. This feels like Groundhog Day, honestly. Since the beginning of this process, we've been dealing with the same things over and over again. Conflicting information being given. There seems to be an obvious problem where one hand is not talking to the other. We have applicants that started with their engineers in the beginning of this process that stated some things that have already changed over time. They have retained an attorney who, even today, clearly there are some discrepancies between what they intended to put in these documents and then what should be in there. I mean, it's painfully obvious. One hand is not talking to the other. Cut and paste issues, we're talking about a significant subdivision that's gonna cause an issue with Westport, I believe, considering the significance of this proposal. And we're having cut and paste issues with the waiver list and the condition list. It seems crazy to me. How do we have these problems at what was supposed to be the last meeting of over 7 months of meetings? They're clearly not talking to each other. We've had instances where they're having side meetings where they have to figure out what one is thinking and what the other is saying. As far as the covenants is concerned on the 2 lots adjacent to Golfview Lane, as well as the covenant that is of protective that currently holds to the parcel where the 40B is going to be located, I would stand here before you and plead with you to not get in the way of what the planning board already has in effect based on the covenants is. You should, you can't get in the way of that. It is literally the only thing that we have that's gonna make sure that Westport Lakes Drive gets finished. It literally, even though the applicant and the applicant's attorneys to this day still argue that they have nothing to do with each other, they have no responsibility, the current applicants have zero culpability, zero responsibility for what happened on Westport Lakes Drive since its inception in like 2002. The road was put in 2008, it's now 2025, and it's still not finished. We can't stand here and have any understanding that the current applicants are going to take on this project and finish it like nothing. They stand here and they're like, oh, this is all feasible, it's all appropriate. The Form O partial release, I mean, you all have it. I provided you all this documentation throughout the process. It clearly shows that some lots were released to Coastal Harvest when they sold in 2016, but some did not. And that protective covenants is there for a reason. The town planner provided me with this. It explicitly draws out which lots were released in 2016 and which were not. Again, I implore you to not mess with that process. It is literally the only way we're gonna make sure that the road gets finished, because the town already sent engineers to do an assessment of the roadway. They had a report. I can provide it with you, which basically said that they would need double the bond to finish the Westport Lakes roadway. In the SMS system and everything that is crucially important to the start of this potential project. Westport Lakes Drive, in the state that it is currently, cannot be considered a viable roadway. It cannot. It's not finished. It's in disrepair. Those documents show that a number of portions of the roadway need to be torn up and a base be put back down, and then top coat asphalt be put back on. The SMS system, the stormwater management system for Westport Lakes Drive, to which the Pine Ridge Estates subdivision is scheduled to hook into, it's defunct. The current developer is in the process of trying to fix it. However, there's a lot of permits that they have to acquire because it's not just through local Concom and Board of Health, it's through Mass DEP. And there were a number of superseding order of conditions that were placed on the entire property way back on the initial approval to Westport Lake subdivision. It's clear, it's here. The documents show that the parcel for the 40B is held under restrictive covenant, and the town does not intend to release that until Westport Lakes Drive is completely 100% finished. From what I understand, right to top coat asphalt. It has to be to top coat asphalt because what Westport Lakes Drive attaches to 177. At one point, they acquired a permit for a mass highway access permit for the connection between Westport Lakes Drive and Route 177. It was never finished, it was never completed. Mass DOT will not sign off on clearing with accepting the connection between Westport Lakes and 177 until it is 100% completed. Not until that happens and the catch basins and the SMS gets finished and inspected, should there be allowed building on this parcel. Again, right through the last 6, 7, 8 months, it feels like, the applicants and now the applicant's attorney are completely disregarding the fact that there is any connection between Pine Ridge Estates and Westport Lakes Drive. It is mind-blowing to me how they could sit here even today and say there's no connection. There is a definitive connection, and can I set my phone? Something? Yes, something? Always have to interject. Shannon Corey and Brad Dean are the co-applicants for the Pine Ridge Estates. Whether they want to argue till the sun goes down, they've always been responsible for Westport Lakes Drive and Westport Lake subdivision. There are a number of name changes and LLCs that they have had from the initiation of Westport Lakes Drive till now. All of the addresses are the same. They all come back to 187 Plymouth Boulevard in Fall River. And they all come back to Brad Dean and Shannon Corey, along with some other people who are on the manager certificates. Quite literally, right from the beginning, from American Links, when it first started, Brad Dean and Shannon Corey are on the manager certificate. S&B Realty, which if you do some research, has a lot to do with the property because a lot of the documentation of the deed transfers that occurred through S&B Realty. S&B Realty is Shannon Corey. American Links Courses, there's Brad Dean. Joanne Squilante, Shannon Corey, Lisa Eston. Another American Links Course LLC, Brad Dean, Shannon Corey, Greg Squilante. The subdivision changed names a few times from when it first started, from American Links. And at one point, they tried to sell and market the subdivision Westport Lakes Drive as the Estates at Wildland Reserve. The Estates at Wildland Reserve. That's what Westport Lakes Drive, the subdivision, was advertised at. I forget which year it is, under Durfee Union Realty. The developer is Durfee Union Realty. Guess who Durfee Union Realty's manager certificates include? Shannon Corey. There is even an LLC that nobody has really looked into called Westport Lakes LLC. Guess who's the managers of Westport Lakes LLC? Brad Dean, Lisa Eston, Shannon Corey. Directors labeled as Shannon Corey, Brad Dean. I think it would be irresponsible, and I understand the 40B process is very particular with denial. However, one, Westport Lakes Road cannot be considered a viable roadway at this moment in time for the Pine Ridge Estates. Two, I keep hearing that we have to take into consideration that we can trust the applicants. I honestly don't think we can, considering their track record and what they have not done in the past. They have not finished Westport Lakes Drive. And just because Westport Lakes Drive subdivision is currently under the control of Coastal Harvest, Andrew DiGiamo, they all know each other. Mr. DiGiamo, Shannon Corey worked for Mr. DiGiamo's company. I bought my house off of Brad Dean. Angie DiGiamo, his construction company, built the garage on my property. It's really despicable that I could stand here and go, listen, I trust that they're going to start this project and they're going to follow through appropriately and finish it like they say they're going to. But I cannot. And you should think the same. I could provide you with every single piece of evidence that shows that the current applicants have always been involved with Westport Lakes Drive. Still, I think, could have some involvement because the applicants say, well, we're not really sure what we're going to do about the mailboxes. However, we might be able to work with the current developer, Coastal Harvest, to put some at the end of the road. Guess what Coastal Harvest hasn't done for us on Westport Lakes Drive? Offered us mailboxes, or a place to put our mailboxes, or finish the road, or keep the sides clear, or do anything of that matter. They are together, they know each other, they can't be trusted.
Okay, thank you.
I guess I'm done.
Well, look like you're, have you got more to say?
I'll digress. Again, documents are here.
Mm-hmm.
I have provided them for you in the past.
Mm-hmm.
It's just not a good thing. I would say that if you deny the application, there is enough information where the town's attorney can provide any type of appeal and win. Because it's not appropriate. The project is not appropriate. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
per Westport Lakes Drive. I just have a couple of, I was just wondering if there could be some clarification. So when we started off this meeting today, the attorney drafted the decision and conditions for our town. Is that correct?
The initial draft was from the petitioner, gave it to our attorney. Our attorney then took it and it made the final product that we have today.
Okay. So am I able to ask if that is typically done with 40Bs? Is that like a common thing that's
Yes.
done? Attorney Pucci has done that before. Are you able to ask through Mr. Chairman?
Well, the last time we did a 40D was 10 years ago.
Right, so I'm just asking you through you, Mr. Chairman,
Well,
if you could ask
actually,
Attorney
better off to
Attorney
ask our
Pucci.
attorney, that's a typical,
Doesn't always happen, but the draft that was provided was a reasonable draft to work off of. I mean, it's not something, the applicant doesn't get to write the permit, but you did the work, you read it, and it was close enough to a legitimate permit to be able to just work off of that.
It's a way to save the town money,
well,
right?
you generate.
Well, it doesn't really save the town money, but it saved your time, because I know you read that draft before. And to then just have an entirely different draft for me that would have a lot of the same conditions, and then you're reading it and trying to cross-reference it and think of where you saw that before, I thought that would not be a good exercise for the board.
So another question that I have regarding this draft, and there was some lines that we went through, and I think you referred to the strike, like, which I would believe would be erasing it from the draft. Is this just like a PDF and it goes back and forth?
It's a Word
like
file.
Like an edit?
It's a Word file that gets edited.
Through like the three?
That's a public document. You refer to it tonight, so it becomes a public document, so you can have a copy of that.
Okay, so when it gets changed around though, like, we're able to see that also? Like, is it an edit? Like, the attorneys are gonna go back and forth and edit and cross out, so they're able to just pull up this document and delete sections? Because I remember him saying that, you know, to put it in as a comment versus deleting his things.
That's not how, actually, you should be clear, because there is no document going back and forth with counsel or the applicant or anybody. There was an initial draft provided by counsel to the applicant, just to be clear.
Right.
An initial draft, that was discussed by the board at a prior hearing. That is a public document, that first draft. Then I took the first draft and I made track change edits and additions to it. I provided that to you and it was printed. That is now also a public document, because you talked about it tonight. Somebody can have a copy, they can have it electronically, it's not an issue. Next, there's going to end up being another track change edited document that's going to be prepared by the applicant, that they're going to make track change edits to this existing document with additional edits to their original language. And then anything that is on the document that I have in track change, they're not to alter in any way, they're just going to put comments if they have any comments reflected to it. That document will then become also a public document that will be referred to at your hearing.
Right.
So I just want to be clear, there are no deletions or any type of
stuff doesn't go away.
It's
right.
Okay. My other question is, when was the email sent to the applicant with the updated draft? Because they said they only received it yesterday. So, Mr. Chairman, do you know, or you know who to ask to who sent that and when that occurred?
Well, I know we all got it last Wednesday.
So that was the same time that it was sent to the applicant as well?
No.
So it was sent to them last night?
From what the applicant says, he didn't get it to yesterday.
But who would be sending it? Would it be Maria? Okay.
And just to be clear, Roger, I recommended to Maria, you asked for my draft, which was going to be working off of their initial draft. You asked for me to provide that to you by last Wednesday.
Yes.
I provided that.
Yes.
that is the public document that you referred to tonight. Maria got that last Wednesday. I said to Maria, do not produce this to anybody until the board at least has a chance to have it for a couple of days. Because third parties or the applicant or anybody else doesn't have the right to get something before my own client gets it. And I just wanted to make sure that you had it at least for a couple of days before it was provided to the public. Didn't change in any way. It's still one document that ended up becoming a public document. But I asked Maria not to send it out to anybody until the board had had a chance to have it. And then Maria, then she sent it out subsequently. But it's just one document, and it was released apparently yesterday.
Yes, and if I might, I was going to, my fault, I was supposed to send it out on Monday, but I had a medical appointment, so I was not home to do it. That's why I did it yesterday.
And again, there's no legal obligation for you to provide it to anybody before this hearing. And then once you discuss it at the public hearing, it becomes a public document, and everybody's entitled to a copy. But it was strictly a courtesy whenever Maria did send it to the applicant, to send it at all in advance of the public hearing. So if she sent it 5 minutes before your public hearing, that would have been a courtesy as far as I'm concerned.
Send it 5 minutes prior to the meeting tonight, meaning to the board members?
No, the board members had it.
Okay, sorry. Okay. And if I can ask, how many pages is this document?
21,
Okay.
I believe.
So, I just want to express a concern of mine. I do appreciate all the board members and what you do, but the beginning of this meeting, when most of you did not have a copy of this 21-page document to review prior to today's meeting, or have it for today's meeting, and then, we've taken, started probably about 7 o'clock, so we've taken quite a few hours going through it in this public hearing. I believe that most of the board had not reviewed it prior to or since tonight, and then they received it on Wednesday. Is that correct? Did I understand that?
No, they just didn't print it.
Oh, okay.
Not everybody has printers at home.
Okay. So you had reviewed it?
We had it in our emails, but not to print it. I couldn't print.
So it was reviewed prior to tonight with most of the team, the board members? Okay. Another question or confusion that I had was when we went over that section 7 with the perks and the waivers and the 30-minute test and blah, blah, blah. When we went back and forth and we had the Board of Health chairman here, I'm not really too familiarized with all the wording and septics and this and that, but I just wanted to ask, does that waiver, is it asking for would the Board of Health still be witnessing these perks?
Yes.
Okay. Because I'm not sure if the board is aware, but in the whole, I don't want to go down the rabbit hole, but in the whole, there's also an excavator company involved with the whole clan. The other thing that I wanted to ask the board was, are we familiar with Novichok Village at all? And is that a 40B completely, or I don't know, like, were you guys involved at all with Novichok? Okay, because they have major water issues, and they have a D-Night system, and I believe it was the first one that came to town. Is anybody aware of that or no?
Nope.
Okay, because they have major water issues. Like one day they can drink the water and use it to cook. Today they can't. Yesterday they could, today they can't. So there's constant. And then another thing, the attorney had said something about benefits, that this would benefit Westport Lakes Drive. I'm just curious on how and why it would. Does the board have any reasoning on how this would benefit Westport Lakes Drive?
They were going to finally finish it, finally pave it to to the access road up. I mean, that was what I understood the benefit to be. I don't know if that's absolutely correct, but.
I'm just curious on what the board feels on what the benefits would be for this subdivision to happen and to benefit Westport Lakes Drive.
I didn't say the subdivision, it just meant that the building of it, that they would be required to finish the roadway.
Well, he had said benefits. You know, this is going to benefit Westport.
Who said benefits?
The attorney.
Well,
I just heard it throughout many meetings.
His attorney, that's not
Yes.
speaking for the board, so he can talk about all his benefits he
Right,
wants.
I'm just curious
We
through the
can-
board, because I'm trying to, understand
We
this.
can believe him or
I'm
not.
trying to ask the board how they feel that this will benefit Westport Lakes Drive, if any board members would like to answer that
I
question.
don't think we can, isn't that a personal opinion?
Okay. And let's see. And then the discussion today, as far as the covenants and this and that, and they talk about lots 8 and 9 not being included. Your attorney had mentioned that. I am curious if lots 8 and 9 pay for HOA for Westport Lakes Drive, and if that, and part of that covenants, they were excluded. Because, we talk about the HOA, but yet the applicant has lots 8 and 9. So do they pay for Westport Lakes? They've never discussed that. And I would just be curious if the board would be interested in that also. That's all.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Anyone else? No? Applicant request a continuance?
Yes, yeah, I think, sorry, thank you, Mr. Chairman. These are detailed, complex issues to finalize, so I think we've done a lot of work tonight, but we weren't able to get it all in, so I'd request that we continue this to the board's next available hearing. We do need some time, I think, to tinker with and propose revised conditions to the board. So that might take until next week. What does the board have available for a hearing?
Well, if we're going to do this, we're going to have to do this as a separate hearing, because this is probably going to take time.
Right.
So we have hearings the next 2 weeks. So it'll have to be after that.
Okay.
So we're going to be busy in August.
Yep.
You said we were busy. Yeah.
Would the board be willing to meet, understanding that you're meeting the next 2 weeks? Would the board be willing to meet the week of the 18th?
So Wednesday the 20th?
The 20th? But just, if everybody can attend. Attorney Pucci?
Yeah, I can make it work if you can.
Okay. Rest of the board members?
Calendar's very full.
20th of August.
I can do it.
It's a Wednesday, yeah.
Moon and Venus and Jupiter, then I can still handle that. That's all right. Janet? George?
I can make it happen, but I.
20th? 20th is okay?
Yeah,
You have to be here.
I can tell you that I have an appointment with my wife at the hospital in Providence. If you can give me a police escort back to get through the traffic, I expect we would be out of there probably around 4 o'clock. So I think I could make it, but just letting you know that.
And it's going to be pushing it for Janice as well.
Is there another day that we...
Would it be easier if we just made it at 7 instead of 6:30? Just, I don't want to do that either, but.
No, I say we try it. I get a helicopter or something.
But if Attorney Pucci's going to pick you up in
Yeah.
Providence, right?
Yeah.
You're going to commute.
Yeah.
I have a email that you got, that you sent us, Marie, a couple days ago, where you were asking Michael Burris about,
Covenants, yeah.
wetland permitting, and he said that they still hadn't gotten that done. Is that been updated? Is that?
That's the most recent, he sent that.
So there's no wetland, there's quite a few, they need to do some more wetland permitting, they haven't gotten that.
Something to do, well, whatever he sent me yesterday, I think it was yesterday.
Yeah,
Wasn't it?
yeah, I guess so,
Latest I've heard.
yeah. So is that a major thing that we need to?
I think, yeah, that's the email that Michael Burris sent regarding the covenants. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I saw that before though, not yesterday.
Yes.
Well, I get lost track of what day it is, the 30th, this is
July
dated
29th.
the 29th.
They still have some outstanding wetland permitting.
It was yesterday, yeah.
Yesterday at 10:34 a.m.
Mm-hmm.
Is that what you're talking about? Yeah.
Yeah.
Correct.
Nothing's changed since the last meeting.
Right.
Okay. Still have outstanding wetland permitting by the site. Foliage they cut back earlier in the year.
Yeah, but that's for Westport Lake.
Right.
That's what was for Westport Lake Drive.
Well, that's for doing the retention ponds
Right.
and
For
all that
West-
other stuff.
for Westport
They're gonna
Lake.
get,
For Westport Lakes Drive.
correct.
Right.
Which all the stormwater connects to this.
Right, that's part of.
That's part of the
Stormwater
covenants,
management.
that they can't start building until that's taken care of.
Okay.
I mean, I can ask him for more clarification regarding the covenant, but I think his comment, nothing has changed since the last meeting, I think kind of tells it all.
Okay, are we settled on the 20th?
I just worry if Jerry can't be here, we can't really.
No,
He can be here.
but I'll make sure.
It just sounds like you could try.
I mean, I can't have any control if there's an accident
Yeah.
on the
I mean,
Washington
it could be
Bridge.
an accident, hit this bridge. Right.
Yeah.
You can come late to the hearing too. You have
Is it easier to get on the 19th?
Is,
Does it have to be?
No, it has to do with the room availability. So it's Wednesdays is our day. Right? Typically.
Well, typically.
Yeah.
Yes.
Can we get this room?
Okay, Marie, do you have the paperwork
Yeah.
for an extension?
You know what time you're doing it?
6:30.
So this is the other 20th?
I just have another question.
Also put something to do
I have a couple more.
Yeah.
I just have a question. Okay, another question. Generally, I mean, the Board of Health, when you approve for a development or for any construction, is a septic plan required normally?
Yes, of course.
Okay.
And that's
But
part of this.
It is part of this, but we will be voting on whether or not to approve it without one,
No,
right?
no,
Okay.
no, that's not true. No, they have to have a septic plan.
Okay.
It's meeting the conditions we specify, and if they
Right.
don't get the permit,
Right,
and therefore they
okay.
can't move forward.
Okay, all right, I just wanted to make absolute sure
Yeah.
of that. And I just have another question. Why is it that throughout this whole process, we have maintained that that there is no connection and ownership? How can you say that? I mean, when it's the same people involved?
No,
I mean, I just would like to know, because I want to tell you that, for me personally, it's made me very suspect of this whole operation from the very beginning, knowing that the originator of the Westport Lakes project walked away from it and has never finished it, and he's the person that's doing this project. So and for you to keep saying, oh, there's no relationship, I mean, we all know there is.
So
Why would you
hold
do
on,
that?
Paul, hold on.
It doesn't sound like a good strategy for gaining our
I don't think, I think a lot of that discussion occurred before I got here. The regulations actually talk about that the identity and capability and history and wherewithal of the applicant is not to be considered, and it's for the very reason, but it's actually for the very reason here. The project has to be taken and the conditions have to be imposed so that it just works no matter who's behind it. Understanding that this board and this town had concerns about the way the applicant, when the applicant had control of Westport Lakes Drive, handled that project. I think this board is going above and beyond what I'm accustomed to in conditions, in reviewing the details, and going through every aspect of this project and making sure that all these issues are addressed. So you're in essence addressing your concern and through this process and the work that town council's putting in, but the 40B regs are actually set up so it doesn't become a popularity contest.
It's not a matter of, it's a matter of, I mean, the state obviously just doesn't care. They want to do this and they just don't really care who does it or what their background is or if, you know.
Oh, hold on.
I know, it certainly feels like that. I mean, they're the state, hey, but you know, it does feel.
Right. The law encourages the development of housing, and it's written so that the lending institution that does that original project eligibility letter looks at the resumes and they make a preliminary initial finding. They don't get into these types of local back and forth. They don't because ultimately the conditions and the surety and the process.
If you spend gobs of money to hire a lawyer to try to like hammer all this out so that you're not, you know, so the town doesn't get taken once again, yeah. I mean, it's really a great process, I have to say. Thank you, state, for this. But I mean, it's been a very expensive, very long process here. And we all knew what the outcome had to be before we began. But throughout this whole thing, it's like you've maintained, oh, these people have nothing to do with the people that didn't finish up the, and so it's kind of like, all right, come on, let's have the charade.
Well, to be fair, and again, a lot of that discussion happened beforehand. What has been stated, okay, is that the identities of the parties as we sit here tonight are different. There's no escaping that at one point in time in the past, the applicant on this project was the applicant that was before the planning board and that had the permit to develop Westport Lakes. But after it was sold, there's no identity of ownership there. And I mean, I don't know what else we can say. It's just the identity of ownership isn't there. I understand that the names in the past were the same and it's the same faces and that there's history there. But if we get the permit correct, if we address all these issues and we get the sequencing of how Westport Lakes from 177 to Gulfview is finished in connection with the development of this site and we do that correctly, then that's the, and again, whenever I said benefit to Westport Lakes, it was the benefit of getting it done and making the appearance improved and the pavement. And what we're hoping to accomplish in the conditions is a clear roadmap that ensures that it gets done. That's the goal. And I just, that's all I can offer.
The state should give us a big fat grant.
They can. You can apply.
To pay for the legal representation. And
there are grants available, and they actually, through MHP, you can apply for a grant to get a 40B consultant. I've done that in other towns.
I tried to get that. And
Not through MHP? Well, I know there are.
Not in this current climate of.
There are programs.
I have one thing, please, in rebuttal to that, if I may.
No.
It's 3 seconds.
All right. Quick.
Throughout this entire process, the applicants have said that they can work with the current developer. If that's really the case, then condition the finishing of Westport Lakes Drive completely. Make that a condition. If he stands here right now, as we stand, and he just said, the idea is to make sure that Westport Lakes Drive gets finished, then please, condition it and get it done.
We have.
Except they're already talking about today, they're talking about the fact that they want you to release the covenant before that even occurs. They want you to release the covenant.
That we were gonna.
I understand that, and I implore you not to. But they suggest that you have the powers to do that. I think we've been over this in the past with Attorney Bucci and the other town's attorney that says that they cannot. You cannot supersede the covenants. If you want to, if there's a loophole that says you can allow something, I would say that you should not. You should not, because it is literally the only protection we have. It is the only protection we have to get it finished, to make sure the road is appropriate for their subdivision. And not until then can they break ground, period. Thank you.
I only want to add one thing. I don't want to talk about Westport Lake Drive. I really don't. That's been hashed from day one. But we're talking about a development that does not have a perk test and a site that's approved. That does not normally happen on a regular basis with any plans that go in front of any boards in town.
I'd like to add something else behind Constance's comment, and that is we were informed from day one by our attorney that this whole thing is based on an eligibility letter, and we can't do anything about that, okay? And that goes to the ownership and all of that. It's all been vetted. But what I see as a problem here is this is a very public process, what we're going through, and we've been doing it for a long time. There was no public process that I'm aware of that advertised ahead of time that these people, so-and-so and so-and-so, are looking to get permission to do this and so forth, and there's going to be a public hearing on this and so forth. Does that take place?
Yeah, no, there would have been, the town would have gotten notice. You have the right to go to the
But
site visit and make comments.
The town,
but they-
not the town
Not,
people.
The people, no, I don't know how
Right.
you would get notice.
yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Town got notice.
It's not a public process like this is, where some of this stuff could have been brought out way back before the eligibility letter.
Correct.
They probably still would have issued it, because I'm sure there's connections that make this happen.
They are very rarely not issued, I can tell
Right.
you that. And usually when they're issued and there are a lot of questions raised, in the project eligibility letter, they'll say, we asked the applicant to address the concerns that were, and then they'll list them in bullet points.
It's sort of like what we have with public hearings. We have to go through all kinds of things and training and all this, but the legislature doesn't have to. They make all the rules, but everything that they do can be behind the scenes. It's the same thing.
Okay, we're all venting here. So this
Yeah,
is-
well, you know what, it feels good after all
At
this.
the 10 o'clock, after 10 o'clock, you all get to bed. Okay, so we you have the paperwork, so you actually have to ask us to do a continuation.
So, on behalf of the applicant, I'd request that the board continue the public hearing until Wednesday, August 20th, and the applicant would agree to extend the deadline for the board to close the public hearing to August 22nd, which is the Friday. So the hearing would be on the Wednesday, and hopefully we'll be in a position to close the public hearing and render a decision that evening.
Okay, do we all know what we have to do?
I think I just have to,
As far as
yes, so
the decision paper and,
I am going to.
because I don't want to go through this again.
Right, I am going to, and again, so that original draft I proposed was just for the board's consideration. I mean, I think I made the comment at that hearing that some boards throw it out, so that was not intended to be a finished product by any measure. The goal was to, and if you recall, I highlighted the conditions that were specific to this project. So the rest of the permit, the draft, was generic in keeping with what a well-drafted 40B permit would start with. So I started that draft, Attorney Pucci made edits, he gave them to the board, I received it from the board secretary yesterday evening. At this point, I will work with the applicant to revise that draft to try to capture what we discussed this evening, the changes we discussed this evening. To the extent the changes alter what Attorney Pucci had drafted, I'm going to put in marginal comment, this would be our proposed alternate solution, particularly with regard to conditions on Westport Lakes Drive, since that remains, I think that remains probably the remaining critical issue. So I'm going to send that to Attorney Pucci as soon as I can. Ordinarily, in my experience, there is a lot more back and forth between town council outside of the hearing to wordsmith, but I can see there are concerns about that. I know Attorney Pucci has made clear that he wants to keep lines of communication very strict, which is fine. I think it yields a longer hearing, which, you know, I thank the board for taking the time to go through these details. But to the extent we're able to get comments back with a little bit more advance notice prior to the hearing, and, you know, you can post it on the board's website. You know, I've seen that done. To the extent you can send it to interested parties, you know, and there's no secrets here. So if somebody wants to, the permit's currently available in the ZBA's office. If you know, you want to send it to parties that were present at the hearing tonight, if they have their email addresses, we're fine with that. But I think however we do it, we would hopefully get a little more lead time on the draft before the next hearing so that we can be prepared, and then maybe send, if to the extent there's something that is still a problem.
Yeah, no, you're being a lawyer. This is getting long.
It got long at 8:30. So you get my point. But yes, that's the process unless I miss something.
So you have to ask for the...
So I reiterate the request for the extension through the 20th and the deadline to close the hearing to the 22nd. And I'm going to edit this, Maria, the dates to make the 20th the date here. So
Okay.
There's a request.
We have I make a motion to continue this hearing until the 20th of August at 6:30 in the, by August, we can do this at the town hall.
Well, we'll see what it
20th of August, hopefully we can we will schedule for the town hall. Do I have a second?
And to extend, that they've agreed to extend our
yes,
deadline.
And to extend the deadline.
Yeah.
Second? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, no. Motion is carried. So we'll see you, this is going to be a monthly thing. We'll see you late August. Thank you all. This is... Okay. William, we're going to have just the meeting minutes?
Just the minutes, and I think I had no comment on that planning board thing.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
I didn't, by the time she asked me for a comment, it was too late to put on the agenda, so that's why I sent it to everybody.
Yeah.
Do a regular comment to me.
I did comment directly to Nadine.
Thank you very much.
Got so much freaking paper here. Do I have the... No, I know you're still meeting.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No,
Do you have the...
but
meeting
I
you gave me this.
I would like to ask a question of it. Is the eligibility process and their meetings and so forth, is that all public information? Is that all stuff that anybody can go and ask for minutes and so forth? There aren't minutes? Yeah, so they don't have to do the same process that we do.
No, they have a representative go and then they'll show a project eligibility letter. They look really as to whether they're a qualified applicant for subsidized housing.
Yeah, but with limited information.
I have seen project eligibility denied once on a.
No, I only had these.
Yeah.
Once out of.
You know, like I say, thank you.
What we can do is we can vote on it, and then I'll just come back and sign it.
Yeah.
Okay, it was the, thanks, George.
Done with me?
Excuse me?
Done with me?
I don't want to do it, I don't want to say it like that.
We're not done with you, it's only temporarily done with you.
18 after the hour, we bills in 6-minute increments anyway.
June 25th? Okay. I make a motion to approve the meeting minutes for June 26th.
25th.
5th. Right.
I second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, no. That's, any other business?
Oh, I make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
I second. All in favor?
Aye.